Those captions are useful for me too. Sometimes
Yeah,
I don't understand what somebody's saying.
Bigger than last time, which is great.
yeah, much
Yeah.
better. Great.
Good job. We listened from last time, we learned, because last time the captions, I couldn't even see it with glasses on. Hearing
It's good.
everything I'm saying.
Yeah.
Wilson is so good.
Smart.
Oh,
You know, by our third hybrid meeting, we have this all figured out.
I have no idea. I think that's as loud as it's
That's
having.
what.
That's why I
Okay.
tried to do a test.
Well,
I can't see.
I could start with housekeeping whenever you're ready.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our second hybrid ADRC Advisory Committee. I'm actually going to be flying solo this morning in terms of facilitating, but Victoria is listening in. She usually does all the heavy lifting, so we need to give her a break once in a while. And first, we're going to pass it over to Wilson to do some housekeeping.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Wilson. I'm with California Department of Aging, specifically the ADRC Bureau team. And so I have a bunch of housekeeping items I want to read off real quick. Just want to let everyone know that the meeting is being recorded. And for those that are attending in person, if you have your laptop on, please go ahead and mute it. Also want to mention that the restrooms are located out there to your right when exiting the conference room. Again, for those that are attending in person, there are copies of the agenda over there in that table where I'm pointing. For those that are attending by Zoom, we ask that participants remain on mute unless they will be presenting or speaking as a committee member. We will also have an opportunity to call on speakers, or the chair will call on speakers, and then we'll have you unmute at that point. Note that similar to last meeting, chat is disabled for this meeting for accessibility reasons, since not everyone is able to see and view the chat. Members can raise your hand to speak, whether you are online, virtually, or in person. And for non-committee members, you'll also be getting an opportunity to speak during 2 public comment sessions on the agenda. Let's see. So for those that are calling in by phone, in order to raise your hand, you would press *9 and then press *6 to be unmuted. And then just want to mention that we also have closed captioning services available. So you just have to turn it on, live transcript button on your Zoom toolbar. In addition, we have 2 ASL interpreters today. They will be spotlighting themselves on the screen, which they have done. If you need any assistance at any time, please email us at adrc@aging.ca.gov. The mailbox is being monitored during this meeting. And that is the long list of items I have. So I'll turn it back to Eli, one of our coaches for the advisory. Thank you, Eli.
All right, thank you, Wilson. And again, good morning. We're going to start with our roll call. So Wilson, if you want to go through the names of our advisory committee members, and for those that are here, I just announce that you're present.
Great. Welcome again. So starting with our Independent Living Center representatives, we have Carl Signan from Free. Carl, are you here?
Yep, I'm here.
Yep, I'm here.
Great. Thank you, Carl. Next we have Eli Gilardin from the Bruin Center for Independent Living. I see him here in person in front of me, so he's here.
Present.
Third, we have Larry Grable for the Service Center for Independent Life.
Present.
Thank you, Larry. And next we have Letty Zuno from Access to Independence.
Hello, good morning.
In person. Hi, Letty. So that covers our 4 ILC representatives. Next, we have our 4 AAA or Area Agency on Aging representatives, starting in alphabetical order. Cindy Kaufman from the San Francisco Department of Disability and Aging Services.
Good morning, I'm here.
Good morning, Cindy. Next, we have Elaine Clark from the Napa Solano Area Agency on Aging.
Hi, I'm here as well.
Good morning to you, Elaine. Next, we have Joe Cobrey from Passages.
Good morning.
Hi, Joe. Good morning. And last but not least, we have our other co-chair of this advisory committee, Victoria Jump from the Ventura County Area Agency on Aging.
Good morning.
Good morning, Victoria. We missed you here in person. Next, we have our 5 consumer caregiver representatives, starting with Andrea Dubrow.
Hi, everyone. I'm here. Good morning.
Hello, Andrea. Next, we have Cindy Soto. Got it. Okay. Next, we have Darlene E. Melikar.
I'm here. Good morning, everyone.
Hello, Darlene. Next, we have Erin Crutcher.
Good morning, Wilson. I'm here on phone today.
Perfect. Thank you, Erin. Good morning. And
Morning.
last but not least, we have Tammy Harsh. Okay. So we have our 6 LTSS representatives, starting with Gabriel Rogan from the North Bay Regional Center. He did express his regrets that he won't be able to make it here today. So we have that noted. Second, we have Helen Lopez from the California Senior Legislature.
Here in the flesh.
Hello, Helen. Next, we have Kelly Takasu from the Alzheimer's Los Angeles.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Hi, Kelly. Good morning. Next, we have Ramon Costelblanc.
Right here.
Ramon, good morning. Next, we have Rita Science.
Here.
Hello, Rita. And last but not least, we have Sherry Raisler from the Society for the Blind.
I'm here.
Hello, Sherry. So that's it for our 19 members. We also have our ex officio members, alphabetical order in acronyms, starting with C4A, California Association of Area Agencies on Aging.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Michael Costa, is that you?
Yes, it is. Last time I checked.
Thank you, Michael. Just checking. Next, we have CalVet, California Department of Veterans Affairs. Anyone from CalVet? Okay. Next, we have CCOA, or California Commission on Aging.
Good morning, Carol Swartzlander's here.
Good morning, Carol. Next, we have CDA, California Department of Aging.
Good morning, everybody. Mark Beckley here.
Morning, Mark. And next we have our CFILC, California Foundation for Independent Living Centers.
Good morning, everyone. Dan Oakenfuss.
Good morning, Dan. Next we have DDS, California Department of Developmental Services.
Kristen Rains here.
Hello, Kristen, in person.
In the flesh.
In the flesh. DHCS, California Department of Healthcare Services.
Hello, we're here. I'm here representing Nicole Kessel. My name is Jeremy Pagan. I'm the HCBS policy section manager. Only been here a couple weeks. I've got the notes for the updates, but I'm here to learn and listen. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Jeremy. Jeremy, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. Next we have DOR, California Department of Rehabilitation.
Good morning, Team ADRC, Anna Acton with the Department of Rehabilitation.
Great, thank you, Anna. Last but not least, we have SILC, State Independent Living Council.
Good morning, this is Carrie England. I'm here with a new staff. I will introduce Allison Veramontes Nan.
Thank you, Carrie.
Hi.
Are there any members that we've missed and want to introduce yourself? Okay, back to you, Eli.
All right, thank you, Wilson, and welcome again, everyone. So our first real agenda item is an action item to review and approve the previous minutes. So hopefully everyone has had a chance to review that. Any edits, suggestions? Oh, I see a hand up.
Andrea.
Let's see.
Yes, it's Andrea. I
Andrea.
unfortunately was not able to be at the last meeting, and I think I'm on there as attending, so that just needs a correction.
Okay.
Thank
Noted.
you.
Thank you. Any other suggestions, edits? Okay, can I get a motion to approve?
I'll move. Second.
Second, all right. Great, all in favor? Aye.
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 Excellent. Moving right along, very excited to have a presentation around our No Wrong Door and No Wrong Door governance project, and collaborative consultant is here. So if we can go, looks like I see Aaron. And I see Jacob, collaborative, if you want to take it away. We're looking forward to hearing your presentation.
Absolutely. Thanks, Eli. This is Erin Lockwood. I'll go ahead and lead the presentation. And I do have slides to share, so bear with me. I'll go ahead and start sharing those.
Fantastic. We're excited because they just changed the volume in this room, so now we can actually hear everyone online. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. So you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. Great. Okay, perfect. Well, I'll go ahead and jump in. So again, good morning, everyone. I'm Erin Lockwood. I'm excited to be here today to share a brief introduction and update on the No Wrong Door concept and the current project that we have underway. I will try to keep my introduction brief and allow plenty of time for Q&A at the end. So just to kind of explain how I'll be going about the introduction here today, I'll start with why. Why would we have a No Wrong Door system? And then what exactly is that concept of an aging and disability no wrong door system? So I'll go through a couple definitions and also spend time to explain the difference between No Wrong Door and the Aging and Disability Resource Connection, or ADRC. And then I'll spend a little bit of time on what that ideal system could look like and the potential benefits. And then end with connecting some of the efforts that are currently underway throughout the state that certainly tie and support the No Wrong Door development. And then more specifically, again, as I mentioned, the current project that we have underway. So again, why a No Wrong Door system? There are many opportunities likely to improve the current system. As we think about the development of a No Wrong Door system within the state of California, there are two characteristics of the current state that really come to light. And that is that the current system is fragmented and not navigable for the consumer. So individuals are not able to connect easily with the system today and obtaining the services that they need. And it's also important to keep in mind, as we face a growing demographic of older adults and people with disabilities, this will only be amplified. And there will be an increasing need for visibility of what's available when it comes to services and support. So what we need is a person-centered solution that simplifies how the consumer, older adults, people with disabilities, caregivers, access and navigate the information and the services that they need. So that takes us to what is the Aging and Disability No Wrong Door system. And I will say, as we've been going through this project and really starting to ponder this and think through all of the aspects, we decided it was best to come up with a clear definition that would consistently describe what that Aging and Disability No Wrong Door system would look like. So that's what you see here on the slide, and I'll go ahead and I'm just going to go ahead and read this aloud. So to alleviate the challenges in navigating and accessing information and services, the No Wrong Door system enables older adults, people with disabilities, and caregivers to make informed decisions and receive warm referrals to a range of long-term services and supports and other services such as housing and transportation. The No Wrong Door system is a collaborative effort between California state and local agencies, service providers, and other key stakeholders. So as we continue to explore what the Aging and Disability No Wrong Door system is, there's one distinction I want to go ahead and make, and that's the difference between the system and the framework. So in order to create the Aging and Disability No Wrong Door system, we must first start with the design of the framework. What's the framework? The framework would be the design, the structure, the elements, and the processes. And then the system would be the operationalization of that framework. So as we start to think about all of the aspects of that framework, we've identified several elements that would be critical for thinking through and developing within the framework of the system. So to go ahead and go through a few of those that we've identified, first and foremost, there's the governance structure and the oversight of this no wrong door system. And then there's technology and data systems and approaches. And then there's the navigation and the operational processes that would be part of the system that would allow a consumer to navigate from start to finish. And then there would be standards, more specifically person-centered standards that would be uniform across the system. And then there would need to be processes and insurance to ensure that the system is equitable and accessible to all. And then we move to collaborators and stakeholders. So there would be collaborators and stakeholders involved within the system to varying levels. And along with that, a continuum of programs and services that would be accessible and connected to the No Wrong Door system. And then lastly, a few of the others, of course, there would be funding streams and opportunities, other infrastructure aspects of the system, and of course, branding, communications, and outreach. So again, that this is an accessible and visible system. So kind of lastly, to round out defining the No Wrong Door, Aging and Disability No Wrong Door system, I want to take a moment, as I mentioned, to make a clear difference between No Wrong Door and ADRC. So ADRCs are absolutely an essential component, of course, to the No Wrong Door system, but not sufficient to be the No Wrong Door system. So as we think about the local ADRCs, they're an integral partner of the system and a critical connection point at that local level. What the No Wrong Door system brings is a statewide and consistent structure for consumers to access information and services. So within the No Wrong Door system, there would be connections, very often likely to local ADRCs, but also in other instances where needed to other resources. And there's a visual on this slide here that just tries to depict that a little bit more. So at the statewide level, again, there's that No Wrong Door system. There's some governance, a governance structure and oversight to that system at the state level. But then there are the critical local connections that would be made within the system. And again, that could be the ADRC, could be directly to the AAA or the Area Agency on Aging, independent living centers. It could be housing, perhaps even a health system, a provider within the health system, and many other local partners. So now that I've gone through defining and providing an overview of the system, I want to take a moment to go through what the Aging and Disability No Wrong Door system could look like. So the ideal system. So if the framework has been developed, we've moved to an operational system, what's that ideal state? So this visual again depicts that. So it begins on the left side with the initial connection, which could be the consumers, older adults, people with disabilities, caregivers having that direct access. It could also be through the support of a third party, a community organization, a professional caregiver, maybe even again a healthcare entity such as a hospital. So that initial connection is made, and that could be through a web portal or perhaps a contact center. And that would really be the launching point to start a statewide common intake process. That would include gathering general information, which would include gathering demographic data for the consumer. And then it would go through a standardized screening process that would identify the preferences and the needs and the next steps for that specific individual consumer. And I just want to take a moment just to clarify too that as we think about this statewide, this common intake process, it's not meant to duplicate or substitute what might be at the program level assessment. This is really, again, just that starting point, very person-centered to understand information about the consumer, but what it is that they're seeking, what they're needing, and where that next step should be. So then after that common intake process, again, there's a clear idea and understanding of what needs to happen. And that's when the next steps would occur, which might be providing information that they're seeking, allowing for navigation and access within the long-term services and support system, or making that warm referral that would then lead to service activation.
Hey, Aaron, we have a question from one of our committee members.
Absolutely.
This is Rita. So the No Wrong Door structure is envisioned as a statewide activity. Yes,
Correct.
so the governance of the no wrong door, is that going to be happening at the county level?
For the no wrong door system, it would be at the state level.
Okay, so you're talking about people making how to connect. So is it going to be a statewide number? Is that number going to refer to the counties or to a particular agency? I'm getting, I understand the structure idea, allowing for equity and equal access. It was part of the law that we operate under, that people have equal opportunity. But they're not going to call the state. They're going to call the county. They're going to call somebody in their local area. So I don't see, I understand structure being some of these things that you mentioned earlier. But when we start talking about people contacting to get services, they're not going to call the state unless you envision a statewide number that refers to the counties. Is that what you're thinking of?
Right, I can step in. Hi, Rita. Good morning. This is Mark Beckley. So yeah, we should probably do a little bit of level setting on what kind of like the current status of our No Wrong Door initiative and what we're doing with the federal grant, which is establishing a state leadership council. And the reason that why we're introducing this concept to everybody today is we have received a federal grant to establish a state leadership council to establish a No Wrong Door system. What we're finding is what's really crucial in establishing a No Wrong Door system is the partnerships. And while I know that at the local level, ADRCs, AAAs, ILC have a lot of local partnerships, but that those partnerships can vary, right? You might have, you know, a AAA with great partnerships with county health, human services, different organizations, but they might not have partnerships elsewhere. What we're trying to do through the No Wrong Door system is really expand those. Well, first of all, formalize, and create consistency among the partnerships that occur at the state level and expand those partnerships. So, you know, the first step here will be to meet with all HHS departments to understand what they're doing, what services they provide older adults, and through sort of like a statewide process, talk about a system of referrals and supports. If we can kind of get those established at the state level, then we expect our partners would go to the local level and also help start, you know, fostering and establishing these relationships as well. And then even going outside of HHS, so with employment, you know, transportation, housing, you know, maybe partnerships we haven't, at least at the state level, fully been able to engage with to the level that we'd like, but getting those conversations going so we can say, okay, we would like to start doing exchanges with housing, you know, information exchanges. We'd like to start doing more partnerships or information exchanges with transportation. How can we formalize and memorialize that among our state level partners so that we can then start the process to formalizing these at the local level as well? So that's kind of the thought here is,
envision these agencies and departments mandating that the people they fund connect in this No Wrong Door system?
I don't know that we're at the point of talking about a mandate. I think what we're really talking about is one of voluntary referrals and cooperations. I mean, I think that, you know, we all have pieces and pockets of information. We all provide services. What we, you know, haven't really developed processes for is always those referrals. Again, some agencies I think do it really well at the local level. Others maybe don't have those partnerships. So I think through the structure, we'd say on a voluntary basis, we know that it would be good for us to exchange information. What processes can we develop to, you know, foster and promote these information exchanges, presumably within existing funding sources, within existing authorities, because they're going to wind up serving these people anyway, whether these people are calling them directly or whether they're going through either a statewide number or a local number to get referrals to those agencies. Now, down the road, I mean, we could build out something much more sophisticated, which is kind of contemplated on this slide. You could possibly have a statewide contact center or a statewide web portal that would also help facilitate information exchanges and referrals. I think that's going to be further down the road, right? We definitely need more investments and funding to do that. But in the short term, what can we do to kind of foster those information exchanges and referrals just based on what we do today, but trying to improve the processes by which we do the referrals?
Okay, I have only one caution for you.
Mhm.
If you're going to get other departments and agencies to participate in this way, people are going to start asking for money for staff to make sure that this happens. So it should be something that you take into consideration. When you're, voluntary, if they're not going to mandate, that's one thing. But if you're going to have the state organizations do this and monitor it, make sure it's happening, everybody's going to ask for extra staff. So it's just something for you to keep in the back of your mind.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Obviously, you've got a lot of experience with standing up these types of large statewide programs. So yeah, we definitely take that caution. And just so you know, and Erin will get to this further in her presentation, our first step is really going to be to interview every agency to really talk about how they currently serve older adults and persons with disabilities, where they think they could contribute to an effort like this, what their concerns would be, which could be funding or technology or other sort of resource issues. So all of that would be kind of taken into consideration, because clearly, I think it would have to be voluntary within existing resources to the extent that agencies can do this. If the administration or the legislature decides that they want to take it a step further, there would likely be the need for additional resources and investments, no question about it.
All right, so just two things. One, we have more hands in the room, but I also want to balance that with collaborative, getting through their presentation. So if these could be the two questions and then collaborative will get through their presentation and we can ask follow-up just to keep flow going. So Ramon and then Wilson.
Thank you. So two quick ones, I hope. One, is this under CDA, just to sort out the state agency aspect of this? The California Department of Aging would be the one that would be overseeing this process. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we received the federal grant to establish the state No Wrong Door Leadership Council. So we're currently the lead on this project. Yeah.
Got it. And then the other thing is, what I'm getting is there'd still be a batch of local numbers people call, but the anticipation is that some of the local people aren't going to have all the answers. And they need to go somewhere to get them, which is then where you are, or the No Wrong Door is. So it's sort of a two-step deal where the consumer calls the local entity. Sometimes the local entity's got all the answers, sometimes they might not, and then the local entity would loop back to the No Wrong Door.
Yeah, there's several different ways that we could structure this. I mean, I think what's important is to establish the state leadership council first to see how this process of referrals would work. I think our hope would be that each of the No Wrong Door partners would work with us on some sort of system or process of referrals that would then go down to the, include collaboration at the local level to see how these referral systems would best work. So that, say somebody calls into an ADRC and they say, I need housing services. Okay, here's your contacted housing. They're part of the No Wrong Door system. You can do a warm referral over to them. Our thought, the first step would really be to put better processes in place for referrals. Down the road, we might contemplate some sort of, state structure where maybe the state would handle certain referrals and then other referrals would go down to the local level. But again, this is exactly the kind of conversations we would want to have with the state leadership council.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Wilson.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on what Mark had mentioned so far, that I think, and to Rita's question too, I think we understand that at the local level, the community, the partners at the community level, they understand the needs of the community. So I think our intent is to really, if there are people calling, we want to make sure that they, get to a local contact as much as possible. However, we also know the reality that for a lot of the local providers, it's 8 to 5, right? So if it's out, before 8 a.m. or after 5 p.m., people call in, they're not going to get a live person. Nor can they get any information until maybe the next day or maybe even a couple days later until they get a call back. And so with our contact center and the web portal is, I think our vision is that it could be kind of a self-service portal where, they can be able to access either on the web or by calling a phone, 24/7, and then be connected to a live person potentially too. But as Mark mentioned, this is still kind of, our first step is to develop that No Wrong Door State Leadership Council first. Start talking it out, see what makes sense, and then moving forward with that. But that's just kind of, the why to what we're hoping to achieve with the contact center and web portal is not necessarily the state taking all the calls, but it's just an extra resource for people that are calling outside of, for example, those normal business hours at the local level. So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, and if there was there was a call center, people might be asking for services in other counties.
Exactly.
So the local person might not know that.
Okay, Erin, back to you.
Sure. Yeah. And I will keep it to just a few more minutes here too, and we will hopefully have more time for questions. But let me just wrap up this slide by, again, I think Mark said it well. Again, this is just one visual of what it could look like in that future state, not necessarily prescriptive at this time. So just to go along with that, let me just take a moment on this next slide just to talk through what we see as the benefits of developing a No Wrong Door system. And really how we see this is actually benefits for all stakeholders involved, but first and foremost for the consumer. What we see is the ability to have there be a trusted and comprehensive resource for all consumers to be able to access, which would allow for easier access to services and information needed regardless of where they are. And as a result, having that additional connection could lead to improved outcomes and increased satisfaction for the consumer. But those providers that are involved in the No Wrong Door system could also see benefits. It could lead to the receipt of more streamlined referrals. It could also lead to improved data tracking and analytics, and the ability to use data in new and different ways, as well as to see better coordination with other providers. And then lastly, briefly, just the LTSS system as a whole and more broadly, the potential for more benefits there. The first being a better use of resources where they can be used more efficiently as well as more effectively. And then also with the potential of cost avoidance, and one of those ways being the reduced use of institutionalized settings. And then lastly, the point of scalability, where this could lead to the scalability of programs and services across the state to meet greater demand and diversity. And I just want to call out too that there are to many of these benefits links to resources of this being seen in action with existing No Wrong Door systems. But let me go ahead and shift and talk more specifically about the project as Mark started to point out a couple key aspects of it. And I'll start out first before going into the project of recognizing where there are efforts that are already underway throughout California that are supportive and synergistic with what's going on with the No Wrong Door Development Project. And of course, first and foremost is the Master Plan for Aging, which just a couple things to point out with that. For 2023, there is an initiative to form the State Leadership Council. That's part of the project we'll get into in a moment, which would guide the development of the Aging and Disability No Wrong Door System framework. And then also, I just want to go back to history and call out the LTSS subcommittee report that was developed during the development of the Master Plan for Aging, which really catalyzed a lot of efforts, but it really contained that focus area of improving the navigation and access of the LTSS system. I also want to call out the California 2030 initiative for another example, which is a project occurring this year led by CDA, which will be, the result will be the development of actionable recommendations for a future-ready aging network of the area agencies on aging, which this will lead to, strengthening the effectiveness of another key organization that would be part of the No Wrong Door system. I also want to just call out, as part of that project, there's been extensive stakeholder engagement, as well as a statewide older adult community needs assessment, which would also be very valuable information as we think about a No Wrong Door system framework. Then there's, of course, the ADRC program expansion and the development of the statewide network, which would again be instrumental in creating a foundation for the system. And then again, this is certainly not an exhaustive list by any means, but the other one that I'll just highlight is just a lot of work that's going in around infrastructure development. So just for a few examples, there's the home and community-based services gap analysis that's currently underway. And then there's also a lot of planning and development around funding opportunities and funding approaches, new training, as well as what we talked about a little bit, which is around the IT development. So now let me just get into, again, a little bit more on the current project, which, again, as Mark mentioned, is part of an ACL grant, so funded by that grant. And again, this project for this year is really focused on forming that state leadership council. And again, that council would be charged with guiding the design and the development process. So what they will do is provide input and design on the framework and those elements that I mentioned earlier in the presentation, which, just to call out a few, would be designing the governance structure that would support the no wrong door system, thinking through the processes and how the navigation would occur within the system, and then really, again, a lot of emphasis on that engagement of the collaborators and stakeholders that would inform and ultimately be a part of the no wrong door system. And then more operationally, thinking about the standards and the practices, such as the person-centered aspect, that would be a critical part of the no wrong door system. And then lastly, my last slide then takes us to a little bit more of the specifics of this project. So again, this at the bottom, the visual represents the timeline for this project. We began in January of 2023. The endpoint we have showing here is December 2023, which would be the launch of the initial statewide or state leadership council. And a few of the key tasks that I just want to call out that are part of the project and what we'll be looking to do throughout the remainder of the year. Again, first and foremost is stakeholder engagement. As Mark said, the first step would really be engaging with key partners, with other departments, and learn from them, gain insights and perspectives of what they're doing now, what they strive to do, and how that can inform the framework and the design of the system. We are also doing quite a bit of desk research as well that will also help to inform the decisions that are made and considerations that would lead to the framework design. Some of the areas, just to call out, that we're looking at are our governance structures. What are some of the best practices and considerations? What person-centered practice standards could be adopted? And what are some key performance indicators that could be incorporated to monitor and measure the success of a system? And then lastly, going back also really to the stakeholder engagement, is the development of the council. So as we go through engagement and we hear from others, we learn from everyone, identifying who potential members could be, and really leading to the invitation to be a part of the state leadership council. So for the presentation, I will end there. I think we have a few minutes left for questions. So again, I'm also joined by Jacob Bielicki from Collaborative Consulting, and then of course, Mark and Wilson. Happy to address any other additional questions that we can fit in our time remaining.
Thank you so much, Erin. That was a lot of important information, and I'm sure we have other questions. I know I do. Anyone in the room first? Ramon.
Okay, on a lot of these ADRC calls, keep hearing about this thing called CHARM. I don't even know what it stands for, CHARM. Is that related to this in any way? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, this is Mark Beckley. I can address that. And you know, to be honest, I can never remember all the acronym, all the terms for CHARM either, but we'll put that in the chat. But yeah, so CHARM is our statewide enterprise customer relationship management system, and that's really the database that will hold ideally all AAA and ADRC data, so that all that data is contained on one platform that we all can share. And yes, it would absolutely fit into the no wrong door system in the future. And where we really see CHARM fitting in is in a couple of ways. One, to make sure that we're capturing on a statewide basis all referrals coming into the AAAs and ILCs from customers, and all referrals going out. So it's really going to give us good data and tracking in terms of the effectiveness of our no wrong door system. Are the referrals getting addressed? Are we timely following up with referrals? It'll give us great data. And what we're really envisioning, again, this is future looking, is for the consumer web portal. When a consumer actually puts in a request through the web portal, information will populate through a data repository that will be linked to Charm that would show them all the services and supports in their local area. And then if they need assistance or help, that request would go into the Charm system, and it would land either at a AAA or ILC for them to follow up on. If we do a statewide customer call center, that would be something else that would also link in with Charm. So if somebody receives a call, they've got information, they would either manually input that information into the Charm system, or there might be a way where that information could on in a more automated way flow into Charm. So again, we're capturing all referrals either through our web portal or through that customer contact center into the central database, which would be Charm. Great question.
So these would not be warm transfer. The referrals would not be warm transfer because they'd be handled through the call center or the web portal.
Well, it depends on, yeah, what, you know, what we're talking about with warm transfer. So if you go into the web portal, again, this is all conceptual, but you could either get a download of all, you know, services and supports in your area with contact people, phone numbers. So you could say, I want, you know, say meals delivered to me. Okay, here's a provider you can contact, or I want respite services. Here's another local provider you could contact. But if you want that sort of hands-on assistance, then we would see somebody contacting the customer, calling them saying, I understand you have these needs. Let me get you in touch with the right person. And ideally, what we'd really see is that person contacting the other agency with the customer on the line, introducing them and doing a warm referral in that way.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Are there questions from committee members in the room? How about committee members on the phone? I see Darlene's hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mark. And thank you, Erin, so much for your presentation. I found it really interesting. So I guess my question has to do with some of the initiatives that are taking place nationally and also statewide. And I'm curious if this governance project, as you look to develop it, will tap into things like the age-friendly cities initiative and also some of the initiatives that are taking place in academia that focuses on healthy aging and digital services for elders.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, your no wrong door system would incorporate all these different initiatives and strategies. Yeah, the idea, I guess, when I think of a no wrong door system, I'm really kind of seeing that sort of like central nervous system. Like this is, you know, if anybody needs any sort of services or supports, whether it's in caregiving or whether it's healthy aging, that, you know, you would call this one number, go to this one website, and they would say, well, let me send you to CalFresh Healthy Living, and they can give you information on good nutrition and best practices. If you need help with caregiving, let me connect you with the CRC and get you the caregiving that you need. So ideally, it really connects all those different strands, right? And so any services, any supports that we're building up, people could tap into through the No Wrong Door system.
That would really be great because there's a lot of good work that's taking place in a lot of different areas. And because this is a no wrong door, I think we need to prevent further infrastructure, I guess, falling between the cracks. And if we can work together, I think we can synergize our efforts. And just to let you know, Mark, the Age-Friendly Cities is working with the cities and counties that they're involved with, and they're trying to work with the cities and counties to provide a lot of good, long-term supports and services right on site where possible. So thank you.
Absolutely. And I also I think it's important to put this caveat out here because, you know, I keep thinking about the concerns that Rita raised, which is, you know, this is going to be a long-term evolutionary initiative. This isn't something that in 2 to 3 years, we're going to stand up this fantastic system where people will get all the information supports they need through one phone number or through one web portal. I do see this rolling out, you know, sort of on a a gradual basis where we'll probably get closer connections with certain partners. Obviously through ADRC, we've got fantastic relationships with DOR and with the ILCs. And so we'll probably take that approach of gradually expanding the circles out, maybe incorporating more, closely tied programs like, APS or IHSS through DSS. And then CDPH, we do a lot of work with them on healthy living. So, expanding those partnerships as well. So I do think this is going to be a gradual process, and technology resources definitely help create a very robust no wrong door system. And I'd imagine that would just be a series of, budget asks or technology asks over the years as a state budget can allow.
That would be terrific. Thank you.
Okay, Carol, you have your hand up?
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, my camera stopped working for some reason. Mark, I don't know if you've gotten to the point of thinking about how you're going to collect the data from the local level and from the state and bring it into the CHARM system. But during the CalCareNet pilot, we did pilot bringing data from the local level into a web portal where people could answer a few questions, and then it would generate a list of services they may be interested in. So anyway, I'm happy to share all those lessons learned in the evaluation, so you're not repeating yourself.
Thanks so much, Carol. Actually, I really appreciate that you brought up CalCareNet, because that's exactly where Sarah steered us in the direction of when we were talking about the web portal. Because she said, we already did something like this before. Let's take a look at that. What lessons we can learn from that. So that was a great start.
Great. Yeah, I'm glad you have that resource.
Yes.
Any other folks on the Zoom from the advisory committee with questions? I just have a few follow-up, more comments. One question, one comment. One thing I didn't see on there was kind of the healthcare expansion work around CalAIM and what we see both at the state level and obviously at the local level with ADRCs and more CBOs offering healthcare services. I'm wondering, Mark, Wilson, Aaron, how does CalAIM fit into the no wrong door system?
Yeah, great question, Eli. And we know that everybody is kind of at different stages when it comes to CalAIM and integration with CalAIM. And some just don't have the resources or capacities to do anything with CalAIM at this point. But I think, one of our key partners in this effort is going to be DHCS. So we're definitely going to, Erin and her team will be interviewing staff at DHCS and really understanding how we can, integrate in with CalAIM through no wrong door. I think, to the extent that people are, certain, counties or certain regions are offering things like ECM and some of the other supportive services under CalAIM, that we definitely have those included in the data repository. So we can refer people to those, to either those organizations or to CalAIM resources. So we definitely do see integration. Again, that's going to take some time to develop and populate the database with that kind of information. But yeah, we definitely would want to fold that in.
Great. And then my final, more comment than question, but it's great to see that kind of in this no wrong door framework, it is still centered around kind of the ADRC AG and disability partnership. And my hope, and I hope that this advisory committee can continue to push the lived experience and perspective of, older adults, individuals with disabilities, and that person-centered design and person-centered, leadership, so that we have a no wrong door system that's truly a progressive system, and doesn't actually create a adverse effect of creating more distance between the consumer and the community member and their lived experience and the services that they're accessing. We really, and I know that, obviously that's the intention, but as we go through this new leadership council and we begin to build out these new portals, that they continue to be person-centered and accessible.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'll just point to two things, Eli, on that. One is the statewide needs assessment that we are going to be conducting over the summer. It's called the POLCA or the CASEO survey. I think will help us kind of identify what needs older adults in California generally have and how we'll be able to address those through a no wrong door system, as well as, you know, what additional services or supports we can offer through like the AAAs. And then I think the second piece would be if we do like a customer facing web portal, or I should say when we do, I really think that that's a key part of this is that gets user tested. That, you know, if we're going to stand this up, we want to have like, you know, older adults actually go in, test the system, see if it works for them, does it meet their needs in terms of accessibility, in terms of information provided, in terms of referral processes. And the same thing would be for the contact center too. I think we'd want to send them through, like, if we stand up like a statewide contact center, go through that process just to make sure it's working properly and really meets their needs. But great.
Great, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Aaron. We've definitely gone over on this item, but this is extremely important. So I'm going to move us along unless there's any outstanding questions. Okay. Thank you very much. We look forward to hearing more as the No Wrong Door Leadership Council gets developed. So our next agenda item is, let's see, I lost my place. Ex officio partner updates. We typically have 5 minutes for each partner to provide updates, but I'm hoping we can move it to like 3 minutes so we can catch up. And I believe the first member is California Association of Areas on Aging, and Michael. If you're ready.
Thanks, Eli. I'll be quick. Couple of things. Last week we had our annual conference in LA, and I know many of you were there, and it was really the kind of feedback we've gotten was that it was a very good conference for the breadth and scope and content of the sessions. I really appreciated the ILC attendance and also attendance from other groups as well. There's a broader group of folks at the conference. We had a couple of ADRC specific sessions. One, which was sort of ADRC 101, that a number of people from the department, Wilson, you know, Mark, others were a part of. And we also had a kind of best practices ADRC session as well. So we just want to say that we're really committed at future. Sorry, really committed at future conferences to continue to have a heavy ADRC content. The second thing I wanted to say is that this week, as you know, our C4A budget ask is there are two components. One is a caregiver component, but the other component is an ADRC augmented budget request for both this coming fiscal year and the following fiscal year. And that is proceeding apace. And in fact, we were asked this week to submit some budget language that may end up being in the final budget bill. So that's a good thing. I can't, you know, we don't know whether it will be in the budget bill, but it is included. We were asked to, and we did submit that language that would provide for greater funding in the next fiscal year and the following fiscal year. And so I just want to share that. I think it's good news. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. And it was a great conference. Really appreciated your inclusion of the ADRCs and independent living centers. Cal Vet, that is, do we have anyone from Cal Vet actually? Or that is not here. Okay.
I don't know if they're
Did anyone from Cal Vet join us? Okay. We're going to move to California Commission on Aging. Carol.
Hello. I want to echo your comments, Eli. The conference was amazing last week, or was it 2 weeks ago now? So congratulations to you, Michael. That was just an excellent conference. To a couple of quick updates on our sponsored bills. AB 820, which supports older adult representation on various state boards and commissions, has made it over to the Senate side. So very excited about that. SB 544, the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act, that's the bill that would extend the flexibilities that allow for virtual meetings or telephonic meetings going forward. That has also made it to the Assembly side. Unfortunately, AB 770, our RCFE bill to expand small facilities to allow them to expand, was held in appropriations on suspense. So we will be coming back again next year. We'll go back and retool, but we still think this is incredibly important in terms of a housing option for older adults and people with disabilities. Still very passionate about this and think it's going to be integral to addressing older adult homelessness as well. So we will be coming back. I think that's all. Rita, is there anything you would like to add?
No, the conference was fabulous. It was just fabulous. And I want to acknowledge the CDA staff who did the ADRC, including, it was just really well done. And, you know, I go to a lot of conferences so, over these last 50 years. So, yeah, it was great.
Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Next, we have California Foundation for Independent Living Centers. Dan.
Good morning, everyone. Dan Okenfuss with the California Foundation for Independent Living Centers. I'm our public policy manager. Happy to be here. And please report that Brett Eisenberg, our new executive director, he started in March. He's actually making the slow journey across country from New York City to Sacramento and should be in place in the next week or so here in person. So we're excited to have him here on our coast. Secondly, we've had another promotion within the CFILC. Catherine Crowley, who heads our Ability Tools program, our AT program. She's been promoted to Deputy Director at CFILC. And then a couple of things on the government relations side in the public policy world that I represent. We are also proud to be working with Michael and his C4A team on that budget ask for ADRC funding, and fingers crossed that we can get that over the finish line. Also in legislation, our co-sponsored bill, Senate Bill 271, which helps people with disabilities who have power wheelchairs, enable them to get access to parts, tools, and documentation for repairing their equipment. That is supported by our friends in the California Senior Legislature here in the call, and also with Disability Rights California, among other groups. And that is also out of the Senate Appropriations Committee and moves on to the full Senate floor. So we're pleased to have that continue. And that is my report. Oh, sorry. One thing would be remiss to not talk about a upcoming event. Our AT program, Ability Tools, has an exciting webinar next week, Introduction to Accessible Gaming. And it's come join Ability Tools and learning about accessible gaming. And with our partners, Able Gamers, they're going to provide an overview of accessible gaming and some basics on how to get started. So for all you video gamers out there, this is a fun opportunity to learn about the new AT that's available to help you in your gaming experience. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dan. I know a 9-year-old who's very interested in that webinar. Kristen, are you ready to do your first report out for
I can give
DDS?
I can give a quick report.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Kristen Reyes. I'm the new Aging and Inclusion Specialist with DDS, and I'll just report on one project that we're working on with CDA and DOR, as well as some other agencies to build a state alliance team with the goal of better serving aging adults with IDD and their families. So we're really excited about that collaborative effort.
Great. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Jeremy with Department of Healthcare Services.
All right, well, apologies as I am I am conveying this information for someone else, so it's a little harder for me to truncate 5 minutes to 3 because I'm reading notes, but the public health emergency unwinding plan, Medi-Cal redeterminations will begin starting in June 23, and it looks as if department will also create toolkits to be available on DHS's website to assist those seeking new health insurance coverage. We've been reaching out to case management providers to ask them to assist their participants in making sure their redetermination paperwork is completed properly and on time. And we've received, during the PHE, the public health emergency, we received approval for temporary flexibilities. And with the ending of the public health emergency on May 11th, there's going to be winding down by November 11th is how we have a lot of those flexibilities still authorized through then for 6 months after the end of the emergency. And during this time, we are submitting amendments for all 6 state HCBS waivers to include telehealth as a permanent service.
Right.
Moving on to care economy payments. There's a one-time incentive payment of $500 to non-in-home supportive services. It's to current direct care, non-IHSS providers of Medi-Cal, where they worked at least 2 months between March 2020 and March 2022. And they sent out a survey in February that the eligibility requirements were having some negative impacts on providers, so they modified them. They expanded the time frame. It actually originally went to March 21, so now it's gone out to 22. And they, I believe, have expanded the provider types. I won't go through all the list of that 10 unless someone asks specifically for me to. And the DHCF will post information on how organizations can apply on behalf of their employees for that on the Care Economy Payment webpage. The LTSS gap analysis and multi-year roadmap, DHCS shared initial data to their subcontractor, including analysis, and our subcontractor is Mathematica. They began their analysis in February of 23. And within the next few months, Mathematica will be hosting multiple stakeholder engagement activities, small stakeholder work groups, presenting with the at the Disability and Aging Community Living Advisory Committee, and hosting a second public stakeholder meeting in July, which will provide an opportunity for public comment. And that information will be on our DHCS gap analysis and multi-year roadmap webpage. That's
Great, thank you, Jeremy.
it.
Next, we have Department of Rehabilitation, Anna.
Thank you, Eli. So just want to give an update on the state budget for the Department of Rehabilitation. Department of Rehabilitation. We're fortunate to not have any proposed reductions to our funding. In the May revise, we are seeking additional authorization for reallotment funds to increase competitive integrated employment. And those reallotment funds are vocational rehabilitation dollars to support employment services for people with disabilities. Those funds are made available from states who do not expend their full vocational rehabilitation award and then are made available to other states. So this will allow Department of Rehab to apply for additional reallotment funds in the future through that authorization. Also wanted to talk a little bit about the Community Living Fund, which was part of the Master Plan on Aging and to advance transition and diversion for ADRCs and other community partners to do that work. That was the $10 million general fund investment through June 30th of 2025. And so the funding is for specific to institutional transition and diversion. We have the program fully up and running as of mid-April. We're working currently with 28 community-based organizations covering 41 of the 58 counties in California. And actually have received an additional couple applications from other organizations. And we are accepting additional applications from organizations who are interested in partnering with us on the program. So if you or others know of interested parties that community-based organizations that want to work with us, we would be happy to connect and provide the information of how they can become a partner. So as I mentioned, the Community Living Fund was implemented basically in mid-April with those 28 grantees. So a month later, we have 12 requests for funding. 11 are for diversion services that help keep individuals with disabilities and older adults out of institutional settings, and 1 for institutional transition services. We have encumbered through those requests about a little over $80,000 in requests through those 12 requests. And I want to, thank Sonoma County ADRC, Sacramento County ADRC, Ventura, Marin, and LA City South Central. They have been the ones to submit the first applications for community living funding for transition and diversion. And as we know, this will really advance the core service for ADRCs of transition. So thank you to those ADRCs who are participating, and we're excited to get this program up and going. Also, we are currently working to fill the Community Living Fund analyst position. So we will be putting out another solicitation to find a staff person to help us with this great program. Lastly, we have recently announced to the independent living centers, as well as the older individuals who are blind program that we administer through the Department of Rehabilitation, that we are going to be providing additional funding to independent living centers and the older individuals who are blind programs, OIB programs, to be able to provide their core services. This funding comes through our Social Security reimbursement dollars. So for independent living centers, we provide funding through DOR to them for ILC core services. That funding comes through state general fund, as well as these Social Security reimbursement dollars. The Social Security reimbursement dollars are basically our program income for Department of Rehab. When we put someone who is on Social Security disability benefits, when they become gainfully employed and retain that employment, DOR gets program income from the Social Security Administration for getting those individuals into employment and off of disability benefits. That funding can be used in a couple of ways, one of which is for additional vocational rehabilitation services, or for older individuals who are blind programs, or for independent living. So we have announced to them additional $20 million over the next 2 years, starting October 1st. In Social Security reimbursement dollars to independent living centers and OIB providers. That's going to be $12 million for independent living centers over the next 2 years, or $6 million each year for the next 2 years, and to do core services as part of their AB 204, what we refer to grant awards. And for the older individuals who are blind program, that's $8 million of additional dollars over 2 years, or $4 million a year. We are considering one-time funding because the ability for us to continue to provide those additional dollars is dependent on the program income that we get through getting people into competitive and integrated employment. So excited about that, and hope that will help improve the capacity and the wonderful work that those the independent living centers and OIB providers are doing. And that's it. Thank you.
Outstanding. Thank you, Anna. Very exciting to see more capacity coming into Department of Rehabilitation's programs. And finally, to wrap us up, we have the State Independent Living Council. Harry.
Great. Thank you, everybody. It's nice to see you all. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Silk staff and members of our network are going to do a presentation at the California Association of Health Facilities Summer Conference in San Diego. We will be talking about how ILCs and ADRCs can be a great support in transitioning consumers from institutions. So it kind of goes right along with what we're talking about. We are working with Rolling Start Independent Living Center and Freed Independent Living Center to do that presentation. So we're really excited to provide those resources to them. Silk staff will also be attending the National Council on Independent Living Conference at the end of July. And our next full council meeting will take place in Rancho Cucamonga, August 8th and 9th at the Inland Empire Health Plan offices. So it will be an in-person meeting. However, a call-in number is available for those of you who are wanting to attend but unable to travel. And then last, but certainly not least, I really am so very happy to introduce you today to our newest Silk staff member, Allison Veramontes Nan, who is our new legislative specialist. She is replacing Cheryl Kasai, who served the Silk for many, many years. So Allison, I know we have a time limit, but if you could take just a minute to introduce yourself, that would be great.
Hi, everyone. My name is Allison Veramontes Nan. I'm the new legislative specialist. I will be very short and very brief. I am very excited to be here. I've worked in legislation for a couple years previously. I was the legislative coordinator at Department of Healthcare Services, and I also worked in legislation with the Dental Board of California. So very excited to be here and excited to learn. So just wanted to say hello and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to say hi.
Outstanding. Well, we're very excited to have you, Allison. Thank you. So that concludes our ex officio partner updates. Just one note to mention, we're looking forward, I believe, to a future presentation to the committee from DDS specifically or potentially on regional centers and more specifically centers of excellence, which really provide innovative, opportunities and pathways for individuals with IDD in academia and employment, and really set up success. And are certainly part of the no wrong door system. So our next agenda item is ADRC funding updates. And that is over to Wilson.
Yes, so this is Wilson Tam again with the Department of Aging. We have 4 updates. First one is regarding the ADRC infrastructure grants. We've engaged our ADRC stakeholders on a new approach for strengthening our ADRC funding allocation methodology. With there being really to us, 5 driving principles or 5 goals. One of them being to expand ADRC statewide. Second, to be able to provide stability and funding for our ADRC partnerships. Third, having an equitable allocation methodology. Fourth, to have a mechanism to increase funding as demand for ADRC increase. And fifth, supporting implementation of Medicaid administrative claiming with our Department of Healthcare Services partners. So that's an update for infrastructure grants. Second updates regarding funding for training. So we reached out to our ADRC core partners, so the AAAs and ILCs, regarding some funding that we have available for training. Because we have heard in the past that our ADRCs would like to get funding and would like to provide training to their local ADRC staff. And so with funding available, we have sent out a survey to our ADRC partners to really find out, what are those training needs and recommendations that they have. And so we're right now compiling all those responses, and hopefully we'll be able to contact our ADRC partners in the near future to let them know what the funding may be able to be used for, and how to get our partners at the local level signed up to take these trainings. Third is regarding Medicaid administrative claiming, or MAC. So right now we are, as everyone know, our previous project manager, Jeanette, received a promotion within CDA. So now we have a new project manager who's in this room today, and she purposely hid out of camera view so no one can see her. But it's Janice Ho with us, and she's been with us 4 weeks now, I think. 4 weeks, okay. 4 weeks. And so with Janice, we are looking to update our time study template. And as well as we're reevaluating our current timeline for implementation. I think our previous timeline was to implement by July of 2024, so just next year. We are reevaluating that with our DHCS partners to see if that's still feasible, and what other milestones and deliverables that we would need to consider in order to make sure that we have a seamless implementation. So we'll be working with Janice on that, and also re-engaging our stakeholder work groups to get their feedback and talk about next steps. Fourth, or lastly, is going to be our MIPA. So that's Medicare Improvements for Patients and Providers Act funding that our ADRCs also receive through the AAA partners. I think I have my colleague here, Gilbert Salcida from CDA. So Gilbert, are you there?
Hello, Wilson. Yes. So, for MIPA, the Medicare Improvements for Patients and Providers Act funding, we're currently in the first year of a 2-year grant, but we have received information from ACL for the funding for the second year, which starts September 1st. And the department is currently in the process of developing contracts that would start for that project time. In that time, there are 2 new designated ADRCs that will be coming onto the project for providing MIPA activities. Those include Alameda County and Sonoma County. Wilson, back to you.
Thank you, Gilbert. That's all the updates we have, so I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, we have a few hands in the room. So Ramon and then Rita.
Yeah, so interesting that you're providing leadership and training from the Department of Aging. Is this a new development? I'm just curious as to where we are in setting a level of training for folks around the state.
Yeah, it's not, this is Wilson CDA. It's not specifically leadership training. We're gathering training needs from our local ADRC partners. And so if leadership is one of them, then we'll be sure to find some options or vendors and be able to provide that to them. But what we've heard so far, training that's related to like the 4 ADRC core service functions. So enhanced information referral, options counseling, person-centered practices, transition services. Those are the main ones that we've heard so far.
Thank you.
Could you explain the funding?
Yeah, I'm Gilbert, just teeing you up for this one, but yeah, MIPA funding, it's and Gilbert can explain this better. Provide just a basic overview. So the MIPA funding has historically been provided to our AAA partners, Area Agency on Aging partners. And there's 3 pots of funding, and one of the pots being for ADRC specific. So Gilbert, I'll team you up now.
Absolutely. So the MIPA funding is through 3 priority grants. The first 2 are for focused on SHIP and have specific activities tied to them, as well as for AAAs. The third priority area for MIPA ADRCs has activities that are focused solely on outreach for the MIPA population and the MIPA activities, which includes counseling and application assistance for like Medicare savings programs and Medicare extra help program and others, as well as providing outreach and education related to Medicare preventive benefits. The amount in this next MIPA award for that would start September 1st has had a small decrease. So it's projected to have a decrease of about a little more than 2%. So about 3%. And the total the total allocation provided by ACL is typically flat from year to year, but as more ADRCs come on board, those dollars would be divided amongst the participating AAAs with, serving ADRC service areas. And
So how much is the allocation now?
$354,096 is the total state allocation projected for this new grant year that starts September 1, which is down from 363,000, almost 364,000 from the prior year.
Thank you.
This is Eli, just following up. Is there a connection between MIPA and HICAP? I'm just trying to understand how.
Yes, there is. So MIPA, as we mentioned, that there's those 3 priority areas. Medicare counseling for HICAP, it would provide, HICAP provides Medicare counseling and community education and outreach for Medicare beneficiaries and people imminent of becoming eligible for Medicare. So the scope of HICAP fits within the scope of MIPA, providing application assistance, education. They're very similar projects and provided by the same office within an ACL. However, the priority areas for MIPA are a little broader, so it includes targeted funds for the HICAPs, which nationally are known as SHIPs. That's why there's priority area 1, which is for SHIPs, priority area 2 for AAAs, and then 3 for ADRCs. In California, our AAAs are responsible for locally managing the SHIP program. So we contract with 26 AAAs to provide HICAP. And but in other states, they have different organizations of how their SHIP program is administered. So some are provided by the AAAs, some are provided by the Department of Insurance. It varies from state to state. And the scope of the activities for MIPA for the priority areas 1 and 2 are roughly the same, where there's counseling involved. But for ADRCs, counseling is not part of the scope for MIPA. It's solely on outreach and education.
Thank you, Gilbert. Any other questions from the committee? Either in the room or on Zoom? Okay, we'll go to agenda item number 6, spotlighting success stories. And this is an opportunity to help bring to light the lives we touch daily through our ADRC to the advisory committee. So today we have Danny Tecklett from Rolling Start, San Bernardino, ADRC. So Danny, if you are ready, we're ready to hear from you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Eli. Hello, everyone. It's great to be with you. Before I read the story, I just want to preface it by saying, this truly was a collaborative effort between DOS PG staff and Rolling Start. And I think it really exemplifies, what the ADRC is all about as far as person-centered planning. And it speaks on the continuity of care that goes into the services. So one of our consumers has been receiving services from us for over 2.5 years. She was 80 when she was first referred to us. She had moved back to California from Texas and rented a house where the roof fell on her head during a storm, which injured her further. Her independent living specialist assisted her in applying for low-income housing, but to help her with immediate needs, she moved in with a neighbor. Unfortunately, this resulted in additional challenges and her needing to move again. Our consumer was determined to avoid going into a nursing home and decided to move into a trailer on a plot of land owned by a friend, which was on a dirt road. This was not an ideal option because she would be without running water, heat, or air conditioning, but this is what she wanted. We were committed to helping her and providing her with the following items: a camping cooler, stove, fan, food gift cards, bags of food during food drives, various assisted technology, a computer, internet access, personal protective equipment, PPE, generator, window air conditioner, bus passes, legal resources. Because of these resources, she was able to live in the trailer for over a year. Additionally, we helped her with an in-home support services application, and she was approved for personal care assistive services. In September of 2022, because of the housing application we helped her complete nearly 2 years prior, the consumer was notified from the housing authority that an opportunity opened up in Yucaipa for an apartment. Now 83, she has moved into her own apartment. Aging and Disability Resource Connection to San Bernardino County continues to support her with food and other services. But this success story is as much attributed to her self-determination and advocacy as it is to the ADRC staff respecting her wishes and getting her the support she needed to be temporarily housed in an apartment becoming available. So again, this speaks to the continuity of care. The staff have been working with her for several years, and I'm happy to report that she is still doing well and living on her own today.
Outstanding. Great success story. Thank you, Danny, and thank you for your work and leadership. That absolutely encapsulates the power of ADRCs and peer-led leadership. Any follow-up from the committee? Okay, we have to beep. So thank you again, Danny.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item is public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone on the call to have follow-up questions or comments on any of the agenda items we've covered so far. So calling out public comment. And if you have a public comment, just raise your hand so we can call on you and unmute you. No comments after all that important information? Give it another minute.
My phone dinged again.
Yeah. And well, there will be another opportunity after lunch for additional public comment. But seeing no hands raised, why don't we move to CDA updates? And I believe this is going to be a few folks from CDA leadership. So Sarah, Mark, Wilson, take it away.
Great, thanks, Eli. Did you have something to start with, Wilson, or should I just go in?
Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, great. So there's 3 things I'd like to update the group on today: budgets, Polko, and CHARM / our departmental IT strategy. So on budgets, we received some fantastic news in the May revision, and Sarah's going to go into this item a bit more in her updates. But we received $50 million to expand behavioral health support and services to older adults throughout the state. We think that older adult mental health has really been a very underpublicized and under the radar issue for so long, and we know how much of a significant issue was. It was really kind of raised to the fore during the COVID pandemic, as older adults were subject to stay-at-home orders and experienced just very high levels of loneliness and isolation. But truth be told, this is not a new issue, and it really goes beyond just loneliness and isolation. There's just so many other issues that older adults struggle with, and so expanding behavioral health services statewide, we think will just make a huge impact, hopefully, on their lives. The second key budget issue is the extension of 4 of our HCBS initiatives. Those initiatives are nutrition infrastructure, CalGrows, which is our direct care workforce program, ADRC interoperability, which is really some of the things we talked about earlier with No Wrong Door. So the construction of a web portal and a centralized data repository, as well as continued work on our CHARM project. And then our access to technology project for older adults and individuals with disabilities. And that's a county program, county grant program that enables older adults throughout the state to get access to technology such as tablets, service plans, and training. We think that the extension of these initiatives will make a big impact on the success of these initiatives. For nutrition infrastructure, we know we heard from Meals on Wheels California about the difficulty in obtaining certain types of equipment and in particular vehicles due to supply chain issues. So the 6-month extension for the HCBS spending plan, which will now go until June 30th of 2024, we think will definitely help some of our AAA partners and local meal providers get the equipment that they need for this project. For CalGrows, that is to provide training and stipends to direct care workers. It's been a huge lift. It's a $150 million grant program that involves 78 different providers. We really want to maximize the time that direct care workers can receive the training and receive stipends. So again, we think that 6 months extension will maximize the number of direct care workers that receive the training, as well as the numbers that will be eligible to receive stipends. For ADRC interoperability, as many of us know, implementing technology in the state takes a long time. There's a lot of robust processes that we need to go through our California Department of Technology, as well as agency, as well as just aligning with all of our partners. So again, this extension is really going to help us finish what we hope, at least the design and scope of a new data repository, as well as this customer-facing web portal, and hopefully get us to the point of entering into a contract for services or for a portal. And then for access to technology, again, that's $50 million grant program, 42 participating counties. It takes a long time experience at the state level to enter into a contract with an IT vendor to configure the tablets to be suitable for older adults and persons with disabilities, as well as make agreements for service plans and with local training providers. So again, we think that the 6 months is going to make a huge difference in terms of getting more devices out to more people and really giving them quality services in the end. So those are our key budget updates. And like I say, we're just so happy for the additional investment in behavioral health and the extension of those 4 initiatives. For our POLCO survey, I think we talked about this at the last ADRC Advisory Committee meeting. This is going to be a statewide survey for older adults across the state. POLCO assures us that they can obtain a 95% confidence interval with only like a 3 to 7% error rate among the responses. So the results that we received from this survey will be representative, statistically representative of the needs of older adults throughout California, but also broken down by county. So it'll be representative of older adults for each county. The survey is going out in 9 different languages. Those will be all available online through an online survey portal. And in hard copy, it'll go out in English and Spanish. The survey is scheduled to be deployed over the months of late June, July. And like I say, once we gather the survey results, POLCO will then run reports for us to show us the impact of those results, which will be shared out with this group as well as all of our stakeholders. And each AAA will have the ability to go into the raw survey data to identify the needs for their own customers and program participants. And then finally on CHARM. So we did a presentation at the C4A conference on our new IT data strategy. It did include an update on CHARM as well. And what we're hoping to achieve through our IT data strategy is the creation of a holistic, whatever you want to call it, data warehouse, data lake, but basically a huge data repository that will collect data for older adults and individuals with disabilities that really go beyond what CDA currently collects and that we've historically collected So through the MPA, we're collecting data sources on employment, on housing, digital inclusion, a lot of different measures. And then with our Older Americans Act programs, obviously we, collect a vast array of information on older adults, their nutrition, services, caregiving. So the idea is to fold all of this data into one repository so that we can really get that holistic view of the needs of older adults across all the domains of their lives, so that we can really better understand their needs and what we need to do as a program to increase, evolve, and address the needs of the people that we serve. With the CHARM project, it really became apparent to us there was a big rush and push on our part to try to implement an enterprise CRM system and strategy in the current year using HCBS funding. But there's two things that really resonated with us. One is, if we don't have this repository, at least the framework of a repository set up, we could wind up getting ourselves into the data cul-de-sac, and we don't want to do that. The second thing is we really want to make sure that all AAAs and ILCs are really coming along with us on this journey and really understanding, your needs for CHARM as well as your needs for a data repository. We've had a fantastic group of AAA and ILC representatives on a CHARM work group to help us define the business requirements. All of that work is absolutely going to be leveraged, but we really need to share that work out with all ILC and AAA directors so that we make sure that there's good buy-in and agreement on the approach that we're taking. So that looks like, that'll be extended a bit. In all, for our data strategies, we're looking at 3 to 5 years. We are thinking that some things could move faster than others. Certainly the creation of a data repository would be kind of our initial or first step. We see a customer-facing web portal following closely after that, because I think, again, that's just logical to do no wrong door system to better deliver ADRC services. Having, a central portal that people can actually go through, I think would be hugely beneficial. And then, I think CHARM would probably follow on the heels of that, or maybe, in combination with that. But that's what our data strategy is looking like. And I'd be happy to present more on that. There's a lot to get into when we talk IT and technology. So I think it's important that we continue to have these conversations. But those are my updates, and happy to answer any questions. I think Sarah might be on now for her portion of the presentation.
Yes, I am. So I'm happy to kind of take it from there if you all would like. Yes?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Like Joe has a question.
Yeah, hi, thanks. I was excited to hear about the mental health expansion, and I'm just curious, can we do some maybe some further follow-up on it? Is it an expansion of what we had this year, where we had the Pearls program and the full service partnership, or is it a variation? Are there other opportunities with it?
Well, that's a perfect segue into my overview, Joe, because I will be telling you a bit more about the concept and how it's been proposed, if you'd like. Great. So as Mark noted, we're really, really excited that the governor included $50 million investment into older adult behavioral health over a 3-year period. A lot of this was informed by our stakeholder meetings that we've had, roundtable discussions over the past few months in 4 areas of the state, including rural and urban areas. And listening to the community members, it was very clear that there's the need for culturally responsive services that are developed locally and with the kind of flexibility to be able to have approaches that meet the needs of older adults where they are. So Joe, to answer your question, of the $50 million, $30.3 million will be for a grant program that essentially invites local partners to submit proposals. It does not have to be the Pearls model or the AgeWise model. It can be, we're going to obviously be doing a lot of stakeholder work to get ideas and input as we develop the RFA, but we're envisioning a lot of ability for local levels to be able to develop their own flexible approaches. We heard a lot that there's a lot of older adults don't walk around and say, oh, I have a behavioral health need. A lot of them are, very lonely or isolated, or might have depression, but they don't think of it that way. And a lot of this is about trying to bring them into the community and meet them where they are, as I said. So there could be a variety of approaches. We've heard about coffee circles. We've heard about friendly visitor programs, many different ways to do it. So we will be developing, as soon as, and hoping these resources get approved, we will be meeting with stakeholders to get input on how to structure that. So hopefully that answers your question. The second part of the proposal focuses on trying to address the stigma that we see so much in the community about older adult behavioral health, and also about knowing about the resources that are there. So it will be a targeted ethnic media campaign to really focus in on communities that might not have a lot of resources or be aware of what's available, focusing on communities of color, LGBTQ communities, rural areas, and others. So that will be a $10 million ethnic media campaign. And then third, we're really excited to be able to extend the older adult emotional support warm line, which right now is delivered through the Institute on Aging's Friendship Line. So we will be continuing efforts for that service and for another 3 years, and really are looking forward to it. So I'm happy to answer any questions on that, but that was something we're just going to be prioritizing a lot over the next few months to begin our work on it. Second, I just wanted to note that we're really excited about the launch of our local aging and disability action planning grants that have been awarded. We were given $4 million in the budget last year to develop these local action plans so that our local partners can do their own planning that's needed. We've seen some of the tremendous work done in different areas of the state by local communities, and we really want to see that across the state. So 15 entities were awarded resources for that. We still will be going out to bid again this summer for the remaining $1 million. We encourage communities to take advantage of this and really want to see a lot of representation from all areas of the state. I also wanted to just highlight the work that we're continuing with our home and community-based services gap analysis and roadmap. This is the effort that's kind of a two-part effort. CDA's leading on a gap analysis of home and community-based services that are delivered outside of the Medi-Cal program, and DHCS is doing the analysis of home and community-based services that are Medi-Cal covered. The purpose of this effort is to really look at our statewide HCBS infrastructure. This is something that has been elevated a lot by stakeholders, particularly the LTSS subcommittee, where it was noted that we have many service deserts in the state. So we're trying to get a really accurate picture of where services are across the home and community-based services network. And then the second part being, once we do the gap analysis, to build out the roadmap for how we actually develop a statewide system of HCBS. So that will be developed in the second component, but this first year is really focused on the gap analysis. Fourth, I just wanted to highlight that we are launching a statewide first ever baseline study of LGBTQ older adults across California. That's something that we're doing in partnership with UC Berkeley and some partners at UCSF, as well as Open House in San Francisco, for an extensive stakeholder process on that. So that will be launching this summer as well. So those are my updates. Happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you so much, Sarah. We have Helen in the room. Go ahead, Helen.
You scoot up a little bit. I've heard this term before, and I don't know what it stands for. I think it's POCO, or the what Mark was talking about in terms of the survey. My recollection from other conversations is that this is sort of intended to replace or augment the local AAA's needs assessment process, the pre-area plan. Is that what that project is about? And I don't know what it stands for either, the POCO or whatever.
Yeah, so
The
POCO
name of the company?
Yeah,
Casella.
POCO is the name of the organization that administers the survey. And CASEO is the name of the instrument that they use, which is a community assessment for older adults. So it
Is
can
that
be
POCO? Is that what I'm hearing?
CASEO. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
How's that? Say it again.
POCO?
Yeah, CASEO, Community Assessment Survey for Older Adults.
Got it. So it is an acronym.
It is, yes. CASEO is an acronym. I don't think POLCO is, but yeah, CASEO certainly is. And it can be used to replace the local needs assessment that the AAA's used. But not necessarily, you know, if the AAA still want to do their own local needs assessment with their own questions, they can certainly do that. And, you know, some may even want to use the POLCO survey in combination with like an additional supplemental survey they might want to administer. And what's nice about this project is POLCO does provide their survey platform to us for 4 years. So any AAA that wants to do their own surveys off of the POLCO platform can also do that. But the goal isn't just to replace the local needs assessment survey. It really is to get that snapshot, a statewide snapshot of the needs of older adults across California, which can sort of inform our strategies when it comes to the master plan for aging, when it comes to other large scale initiatives we might want to move forward. So if there's something that really jumps out to us from the CASEO survey that says there's this big glaring need or there's this critical gap in the services or supports that we provide in the state, it can help inform that. What's also nice about the survey is POLCO is very protective of this. They don't allow organizations to change survey questions because all of these have been scientifically tested over the years. So they really elicit, you know, valid responses. And so they've tested that. So we can really use this. I mean, if we wanted to, like 4 years from now, rerun the survey and see if there's been any progress made based on initiatives or services that we've been providing as a result of master plan or through local programs to see if we're actually moving the needle and making progress. Also, I know New York, Virginia, North Carolina have also used this survey on a statewide basis. It's also kind of interesting to compare our survey results to the results of like other states or other local entities, just to see, you know, how California is faring on a national basis. But some of
I have a question about this. Is it possible for the members of this committee to get the Casella survey?
Yeah, we can give you, we have the questions. Happy to share out the survey questions with the group. Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna go Ramon and then Kelly.
Okay, so on the POCO survey, so this is a standard instrument that they've been using around the country, as I understand it.
Yeah, for about the past 15 years. Mm-hmm.
Okay, is there some document that explains where they got their questions? You mentioned that it had been worked up systematically, so I was wondering if there's something I could read.
I'll put a link up in the chat.
Yeah, we'll post the link, right? So it does give you some history. And I'm sure they'd be happy to talk to you as well. Just to tell you, you know, give you more details about how the questions originated, who they worked with on the questions originally.
Yep.
Great. Kelly.
Hi, Sarah, you mentioned that there was $1 million left for the age-friendly grants. Are the parameters going to be the same as the ones that have been previously distributed? So it's only for like new communities?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. And if anybody has answers, I'm happy to direct you to our program team that can provide the specifics. But yes, you're absolutely right. There are some parameters. If your region already has one, or, you know, if there's been engagement, you know, there's a number of different requirements. So we will stick to those for the second round, but thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Wilson, I have the link for CASOA POLCO, but I can't put anything in chat. So I'll just send it to you and you can send it out to the group. Does that work?
Yep, sounds good.
Turns out if you're in the room, you don't get chat.
The chat's disabled.
Chat's disabled. We're not allowed to talk to each other, so I'll abide by that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Can it snarky comments?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll have to just text each other.
We are.
Good. Any other questions on the phone? Okay. Just one final question from me for the LGBTQ study that UC Berkeley and UCSF are going to be engaged in. How can ADRCs plug into that? How can we push that important work out into our communities?
Thank you, Eli, for the question. So there's going to be an extensive stakeholder process that Open House is running. So we are going to have, we're internally planning kind of how to launch it, but you're right. We want to make sure that our partners in the communities have opportunity to be part of this. So I think the best thing I can do is I'll send you an email and CC our lead on this project, Ross Lallian, and he can make sure to follow up with you with specifics. But we'll make sure that we also include it as part of our broader outreach with stakeholders.
Outstanding. Thank you, Sarah.
Great.
Okay. Well, anything else for the CDA team?
I have a couple
awesome.
updates.
Yeah,
Thanks for rounding it out. I think we have a few more minutes. So just real quick, a couple updates. So the ADRC team at CDA, we're starting to conduct our site visits to our 25 ADRCs, both emerging and designated. We've so far completed 8. And our goal of the visits is to really, learn about what goes on at the local level, find out any challenges and any successes that we can share, and also maybe provide training, peer-to-peer contacts and such. And so after all the site visits are done, we actually plan to put together a summary, which we'll share with our stakeholders, so our ADRCs, as well as our advisory committee, to figure out if there's any way that, whether the advisory committee and or CDA can be of support to our local ADRC partners. So more to come on that. It's been very exciting. Again, we've only done 8 so far, but learning a lot. So second and last one I have is regarding the ADRC Advisory Committee membership. As we mentioned at the last meeting, we have one ILC representative seat that's expiring at the end of June of this year. And so CDA, in collaboration with our advisory committee membership work group, has reviewed applications as well as conducted interviews. And so next we'll be providing information to our CDA director, Susan DeMorris, for her consideration of making the appointment or filling that vacancy that's soon to be. So more to come on that. We're hoping by July, the next meeting is July, we would be able to make the announcement by then. All the updates I have.
Great. Good. Important consideration. Any follow-up questions for Wilson?
I think everyone wants to go to lunch.
Yeah.
That's what we're texting about.
The stomach rumblings you hear on Zoom is almost lunchtime. Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, we can adjourn for lunch 3 minutes early, back at 1 o'clock. And we will see you all online today. Back, everyone. I hope all of you on Zoom had a good lunch. We partied hardy here in Sacramento. So we are going to resume our ADRC Advisory Committee meeting, and we actually have an action item related to our next agenda item. So we're going to look at our work groups and work plan development. So each work group will share their proposed priorities, focuses for including into the ADRC Advisory Committee work plan. Each work group has 10 minutes for presenting and discussion. We're going to ask that all members refer to the draft committee work plan, which includes the proposed deliverables for each work group. The committee may vote, we will vote, to adopt the committee's work plan either at this meeting or at the July meeting. And just as a reminder, the timeline for this is back in February, work groups began identifying priorities, focuses to include in their committee work plan. And again, either this, during this meeting or in July, the final work plan will be voted on for adoption by the committee. Any questions on that before we dive in to the committee's reports? Okay, not seeing any. Let's go to our first work group, data and outcomes. And that is going to be Elaine and Letty.
I'm looking for it.
Okay, we can go.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, all right. So it was a really good lunch. So we're gonna go to we're gonna come back to data and outcomes at the training work group. Carl and Cindy.
Thank you, Eli. I am presenting this time, and I do appreciate actually being able to go first because I have to go report out to the Board of Supervisors very shortly. So yes, we have, and I am pulling mine back up as well. For us, sorry, I must have gotten rid of it. It was well prepared. I'm sorry, hold on. There it is. So there are some items that we will continue supporting in the work that we are doing, and those are primarily the roundtables, the Friday roundtables, as well as the peer promising practices. And there is, just as a plug, another Friday roundtable is next Friday on the 26th. And it will recommend 2 of the promising practices from last time, as well as a discussion that Carl is going to moderate, and it will be a panel for a discussion. It's from 11 to 12:15. So then we will also, as part of the work plan, we're working with staff to assist with creating a list of external trainings, as well as providing input on the staff created trainings, as well as the templates and other resources for them. Right now, staff are currently conducting a survey of training needs. So this is a great time for folks to have input into that as to what is needed going forward. And then we are also providing input to the development of the state level vision of person-centered practices. This is a much broader perspective, as much of the conversation that we had earlier today falls into that. And I think, without having the work plan directly in front of me, I think that is primarily it. I'll look at Carl to see if I am forgetting anything.
I think that was great. You just failed to mention yourself as one of the panelists next Friday.
I think that was great. You just failed to mention yourself as one of the panelists next Friday.
Oh, I did intentionally. Thank you, Carl.
And we hope folks will be there and spread it among your ADRC.
And we hope folks will be there and spread them on your ADRCs.
Thank you so much, Cindy and Carl. Questions, follow-up, comments from the committee? Okay, and I should have read the descriptions of each work group. So the purpose of the training work group is to support the development of promising practices, standards, and training materials to guide designated and emerging ADRCs and other stakeholders. And it sounds like you guys are right on top of that. Yes, Ramon.
So where do you get your training materials?
So that will be the curriculum will be, that's part of the conversation. Part of what we're looking at is where folks currently get training materials. I think there's different opportunities. I know some provide themselves, some actually go outside of, I want to say it's Boston University that provides some options.
Yeah.
Centered care. Is that right, Carl?
Yep.
Yep. So that is, we're trying to see where people gather information from. Also, if there's any that we start to create in-house. I know I had staff that would, for some of those things, instead of going out, they would love it if CDA could provide something along those lines. So that's part of the curriculum itself. That's part of what we'll take a look at.
Yeah, just to echo, it's real about gathering what is being done and then identifying where the gaps are and where CDA may be able to supplement
Yeah.
the existing material.
Yeah, and just to echo, it's really about gathering what is being done and then identifying where the gaps are and where CDA may be able to supplement the existing materials.
Great. Any other questions? My only more just comment is just thinking again about the healthcare space and how many ADRCs and AAAs and ILCs are pursuing CalAID. And obviously, for many of us, that's a big pivot in terms of our traditional service delivery model and the way we go about tracking data, billing, in some cases, building and expanding relationships with healthcare partners, hospitals, skilled nursing facilities, ombudsman programs, and down the line. And I know there's a lot of resources like the TA marketplace, and obviously the PATH cited funding. But just thinking moving forward, how we as an ADRC advisory committee and how the training work group begins to integrate some of that healthcare training into our CalAID related training into our work. Okay, so why don't we move to sustainability work group next? And the purpose of our sustainability work group is to develop and recommend strategies for maintaining the viability of ADRCs through growth and partnership opportunities. The current focus is on the development of our ADRC business plan in collaboration with CDA and MNOT. And for this, our two co-chairs, Joe and Larry. Take it away.
Larry, you want to start, Larry?
Well, it's pretty easy, and thank you for giving us this opportunity. We have been working with MNAT and their business plan presentation and going over the sustainability issues regarding governance, funding, and I forget what the third point was, but that's the majority of our meeting has been spent with the collaborative, Banat. Joe?
Yeah, and they're on the agenda coming up, so you'll get a chance to see, I guess, the status of where we are. I would just add, we're beginning to kind of get into the meat of it. We had some pretty lengthy discussions at our last meeting surrounding funding, really looking at, the braiding of our services, debates on money being spent on administration and program. And I think there's a lot of things that are going to need to be hashed out and discussed. So I think we'll get a taste of that today.
Perfect. So you guys can hold the questions for Manat later.
Okay. Nice strategy, Larry.
Thank you.
That was tricky.
All right, anything else on sustainability or follow-up from the committee? So we are going to go back to data and outcomes. And the purpose of the data and outcomes work group is to support the implementation and continual improvement of statewide data collection methods and evaluation tools for measuring and reporting on outcomes and impacts of the ADRC program. So Letty and Elena's here.
Hi, I'm Letty Zuno, co-chair of the Data and Outcomes Work Group, and I think my co-chair Elaine might be on the call.
Yes, I'm here.
Elaine. So we have some really exciting objectives that this work group is working on to establish program metrics and measure program outputs, quantitative, and consumer outcomes, qualitative. These are our deliverables to support CDA to establish a statewide ADRC consumer experience survey. Our action plan was to survey the pilot that was completed to support the rollout of the annual consumer experience survey by designated ADRCs by July 2023, so that's coming up. Support longer consumer experience survey by ability, delivery, and data to collect, and initiate upon completion and review of consumer needs assessment data. Our deliverable number 2 is to support CDA to enhance indicators for measuring and demonstrating positive program impacts to and outcomes of consumers and service providers. This is an ongoing goal of ours. We review quarterly data reports with ADRC Bureau and identify trends and gaps. We also support the development of ADRC impact narratives and reports utilizing this data from ADRC. And lastly, we support CDA to identify and establish ADRC data elements that contribute to the advancement of the master plan for aging. Our action plan is to consult with CDA leadership and MPA data dashboard team to explore where the ADRC fits within the MPA data dashboard. And then some quick points from just the very last meetings and conversations that we have recently had as a work group. For the past few months, the work group has been identifying projects to place into the work plan and finalizing that work plan. We gave final input on the ADRC Consumer Experience Survey beta test. The survey will be implemented with ADRCs in the coming year. We also discussed final data from the ADRC CARES Act survey. We saw that in our very last meeting. So I don't know if everyone has a little bit of access to that data, but it's really interesting and wonderful to see all of the work that was done with that CARES Act funding. If I missed anything, Elaine, please feel free to chime in.
I think you covered it. What the one thing I just want to note is that we haven't finalized the work plan yet, and that will happen this coming in this next meeting that we're going to have. There's a lot that we're looking at and working with Amanda and the team to make sure that a work plan covers the items that they want us to focus on.
Thanks, Elaine. We will not be taking questions. Okay. You can't ask the question because they're in this group.
Great. All right, Ed, follow up for Letty and Elaine. Okay. So then we can potentially call a vote now to approve the draft plan, is that?
It sounds like the Letty's or the data and outcomes work group hasn't finalized
Okay,
their.
so we'll push it to July.
Yeah, I think so for ours too.
Sorry, this is Amanda. We did finalize the agenda or the work plan items, but if there are additional, if the work group identifies any after it's voted, is that possible to add them? I wasn't sure how that goes.
No, it's written in stone, can't be changed once. Once you decide, that's it.
I'm all for progress, so we can always amend the work plan. If folks are good with what we have, because it seemed like there are a lot of questions or follow-up.
Well, what I heard was a lot of reporting on the meeting, but I'd like to see the results in writing and work on it in July.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the draft was sent.
The draft,
was
yeah,
in the
the
agenda.
draft was attached.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is our draft work plan, what we just reported out on.
Good, but you said something about needing to finalize it?
Well, I think
Elaine.
Elaine said that, but I don't know, I'm not sure.
We did approve the draft work plan yesterday at our.
So basically, all the committees have their draft plans ready to go, and it's recognizing, and it was sent in the agenda packet. Recognizing that anything that comes up between now and July can be added and we can amend the plan.
Okay.
But the committees are comfortable with what they've presented, and it doesn't sound like there's
Well,
concern.
we had quite a discussion, a difference of opinion on what the money is used for. Whether or not it's administrative or if it's program. So I don't think we're finished with ours.
So this is Wilson CDA. So that's a separate discussion. So the work plan, I think for our sustainability work group where Rita is part of, also with Joe and Larry, is our focus is on one specific deliverable, which is the ADRC business plan. So that's our contribution to the committee work plan. So it's helping develop the ADRC business plan. But the business plan itself won't be done until like the end of this year.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
So
I
moved.
hope that made sense.
All right, I hear a motion, but Joe has his hands up, so just want to get.
Oh, no, thanks. Wilson, you covered it, that the sustainability plan is a plan within the entire work plan. And so, thank you.
All right, so we have a motion by Helen. Do we have a second? Okay, Letty's second. So call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, the work plan passes unanimously. Great.
Draft.
So the next draft, yes. The next item is Manat is going to speak on the ADRC business plan development. Do we have Manat on the line?
I don't see them on the line, Eli.
Did they know they were coming?
We're 10 minutes early. I think we're 10 minutes early.
Oh, you're early? Okay.
Can we move?
Well, we can come back to Manat. Is it Manat or Manat? It's
Manat.
Manat. Okay. Awesome, Manat.
Oh, fine.
So why don't we go to partner updates? And we'll come back to the business plan. So this is an opportunity for advisory committee members wishing to provide additional updates to raise your hand and let us know. Could be on anything. We have to stall for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Any interesting things going on in your area, what you're learning?
Eli,
best
may I-
practices, challenges? Yes, okay, Elaine has her hand up.
Yeah, so we're still emerging, but I thought it was interesting. We're doing a soft opening by using the ADRC to give out about 1,400 iPads to older adults. And that's going to start in a couple of weeks, and we're pretty psyched about it because it'll give us some marketing exposure, as well as make sure that we have systems in place to handle the things that we're going to need to handle.
That's outstanding. Are you doing a campaign, like a kind of outreach effort tied into that?
Yeah, there will be outreach. We've got all of it. We've got several e-newsletters. We've been meeting with community members. We've got the advisory councils very much involved with it. Got flyers. We've got, I think we're going to be putting something in the paper. We probably won't actually. We were going to put something in the paper, a press release, but then we thought, let's see how this goes first, because we don't want it to be a colossal, oh my goodness. But depending on how it goes, that might be the next step. And then we also have, we're working with the county to provide, they're hiring navigators, technical navigators to help seniors transition, use the material, use the iPads, but then also transition to low cost internet connection when that becomes, you know, a need. So we're gathering all that information, and we're working with the navigators. We're hired through ARPA funds, and they're going to be enlisting the people from the community college, so students. So it's going to be a intergenerational activity. Very excited about this.
That sounds
Outstanding. Other partner updates?
Eli, this is Amanda. It looks like Zarin and Caroline from Minot are here. I wasn't sure
Okay,
if
good.
we were waiting on anyone else.
Well, why don't we go to Minot? Welcome Carolyn and Zarin. We're very eager to hear the work that you're engaged in around the business plan.
Thank you both so much, and apologies for being a little bit late. We had some technical difficulties, but we're back on now. So it's wonderful to see you all. I think the last time was in January since we joined the meeting. But as a reminder, Zarin and I are coming from Minot, which we are a integrated law and consulting firm working with CDA since about the beginning of the year, and in particular with the sustainability work group on our business plan. So if you could pull up the slides, Zarin, that'd be great. And really, we just want to provide a brief kind of flyby update of where we are in the process. You can go to the next slide. Recapping our goals, objectives, and the overall framework. I think Larry and Joe spoke to a couple of the components being governance and funding. Kind of give you a brief summary of some of the key takeaways from our first two meetings. We're about halfway through our series of meetings with the stakeholder or with the sustainability work group. So we'll report out on some key takeaways there, and then just share what our future stakeholder engagement plan and next steps are for continuing the work, a little bit on timeline and when we plan to share the final recommendations with you later this year. So you can go to the next slide. And the next one. So here's, we haven't seen this kind of laid out this way, but really to remind everyone, we're looking at a business plan and an investment plan over 5 years, 5 fiscal years, looking at 2024 through 2028. And the overall goal being strengthening, sustaining, and expanding ADRC partnerships across the state in alignment with the master plan on aging, of course, and using kind of the North Star of the no wrong door vision which it was great to hear from Collaborative Consulting earlier this meeting, earlier on in the meeting about the distinguishing factors between ADRCs and no wrong doors. And we really see this as the fundamental building block. I think in their slide, they said, it's a necessary but not sufficient component of the no wrong door system. So that's kind of the lens that we're taking on this. So in partnership with CDA and the Sustainability Work Group, we're looking across three main objectives for achieving this goal. One being addressing first the gaps in coverages for counties without access to ADRCs. And within that, that's looking at kind of defining contracting, financing, and technical support approach to support these new ADRCs, as well as a recognition of the distinct need of rural areas and defining a rural strategy within that first step. The second objective being strengthening the core services that exist across the network, implementing best practices with the goal of ensuring consistency in services and equity and access. So that's kind of the gap filling phase and really identifying key opportunities for shared resources across the networks. And then the third one being positioning all of the ADRCs within the no wrong door vision as it evolves, seeing that the governance structure is currently kind of being defined and formed, and we're going to be closely tracking alongside all of those activities as well. So that is kind of where we are with defining the vision and really restating California's vision for ADRCs, being that every community in California has a highly visible, reliable, and universal access point that provides information and facilitates equitable access to long-term supports and services. So all of these are meant to kind of support that California ADRC vision under this 5-year goal. You can go to the next slide, Zarin. So before we kind of got into the recommendations across the specific business plan components, we wanted to level set with this group and with the contribution and alignment with the Sustainability Work Group. We thought it was really important to level set with guiding principles that we can kind of check ourselves against as we iterate, refine, validate the recommendations as we go along. So the first one being this, the importance of balancing flexibility and standardization in the system that we're driving towards. So that's striking the appropriate balance between the local nature of the program as well as what centralized supports can help, with the infrastructure moving forward that would really enhance the partners and the essential service functions. Two is, of course, ensuring equity and consistency. And there's really two components of that. First, equitable opportunities for communities to pursue the model and consistency in how it's implemented, but also equitable access and experience and consistency and experiences for populations served by the model, especially for traditionally underserved folks in communities across the state. The third guiding principle is underscoring the importance of enhancing collaboration and integration. That's through the Aging and Disability Networks and other state agencies and programs. So those are what we're kind of our North Stars for the recommendations. And then I think we can get into the framework here. So this was our working framework. So first we tackled governance, administration, and partnerships in the first meeting. And mind you, these are 90-minute meetings. So while we did a lot of level setting, a lot of kind of teeing up some initial recommendations, we're still very much having an ongoing conversation and look forward to your feedback as well in this process. But the governance administration really focusing on regulatory oversight and resources and articulating what the kind of flavor, what the look of a statewide expansion approach and timing could look like. Partnerships, both being state and local, the key entry access points, the role of the extended partners, and really cultivating more partnerships with healthcare entities. And we're always conscious of the importance of braided funding opportunities there, and thinking about expanding revenue diversification. And that goes into funding, which Joe and Larry spoke about. We just had our meeting on Tuesday, so we're sifting through a lot of the notes on that section. But so we went through funding and a little bit on, if you go to the next slide, on capacity building and supports. If you go back one slide just a second so I can talk about the funding, we really articulated, let's level set first on the current state of the source of funds. looking at the sustainability of the current system, as well as identifying some potential legislative risks and doing a little bit of building scenarios across, funding strategies and what that could look like. We really also, highlighted where we are in the current state of revenue diversification, knowing the importance of MAC claiming moving forward, as well as the potential for Medi-Cal contracts and other funding strategies. And we also covered the use of funds and the equitable distribution of funds, which I think Wilson spoke to as well as it relates to contemplating a future funding methodology. Okay, and the next section, capacity building and support. Again, we got really early on in this discussion. We're going to be continuing this conversation at the next meeting. There was just so much to cover with the funding section. But this was, there's a lot of great foundational work from Collaborative Consulting on this through their readiness survey. So we looked at that, we pulled out some themes there. But this is really going to be looking at what are the necessary financial and technical supports, whether it be kind of more training standards, TA across different phases of designation, in particular for the unsure counties, where we see the gaps in coverage. So, and then the third and final meeting before we really dig into the draft of the business plan, we'll look at information systems and communications. So we will look at that next month. I think I'm probably going a little bit too slow here, so I'm gonna whiz through these. The first being kind of our timeline. I talked about we're kind of in mid-process right here between meetings 2 and 3. The final business plan will be delivered to CDA at the end of September, but we plan to have draft business plans in between them. And we will be coming back to this group as well before the final plan is delivered. So first, just kind of, this is going to be tough to run through quickly, but we wanted to level set on where the gaps are. We mapped out, we used the map that actually Collaborative had provided, which looked across designation phases and where the gaps geographically are across counties. We also overlaid kind of where the existing PSAs for AAAs are, as well as the ILC catchment areas are. And we really saw that there's a lot of important, there's a clear importance of using community-driven planning approaches for the statewide planned expansion. So we know there's an enormous amount of activity. Joe, you spoke to your strategy in the northern counties too, in terms of having some flexibility and learning from what's being done on the ground, and kind of acknowledging the really critical pilot work that's being done to support these regional approaches. But this was just a helpful kind of level set of where currently are the assets, where is the kind of the service delivery mapping out, and where can we potentially get creative about solutions that meet the needs of the unique needs of counties across the state. And then, so for the governance administration, we looked at multi-agency governance with key partners, including DOR, DHCS, and other agencies. So where that can be enhanced through the statewide model. And the group really underscored the importance that ADRC governance should reflect what the ADRC is fundamentally a partnership, but emphasize, of course, that any kind of additional co-leadership processes should not be overly duplicative. They should really hone in on the most essential ways in which partnership can be furthered and amplify the process. And then, of course, other opportunities with DHCS, DDS, and regional centers could help leverage additional funding opportunities, the group noted. So we talked a little bit about recommendation 2 on the map, so I won't go back to that one, but really seeing kind of the need for a flexible approach and community-driven planning approaches too. Anything, Joe, Larry, I'm missing on governance for right now?
No, I think you're covered. You're great. Thanks.
Okay. And then the last 2, sorry, Joe, were you going to say anything?
Agree. Thanks.
Okay. And then for partnerships, really focusing on formalizing and enhancing cross-training, which is, we know there's activities ongoing with that, but the work group confirmed that more is needed and offered additional considerations too. So looking at partner relationship building, data collection, we'll talk a lot bit more about that in the third meeting, as well as very importantly, strengthening the role of caregivers and things like options counseling and the core services. and then we also had a recommendation on the critical role of the extended partners for ADRCs. So, but included in that, there was desire for more guidance templates, examples of high value partners and networks and what that could be, where the best practice sharing could happen for something like that, and maybe potentially included in some form in the designation criteria or acknowledged more. So that's governance, administration, partnerships. I'm going to just quickly talk about what we covered in funding and capacity building and supports. We are still kind of in process again of summarizing some of these components. So they're in kind of high level form right now, but as I mentioned, we kind of level set on the funding sources and uses, including kind of how the infrastructure grants are allocated and have evolved over time in terms of the split between emerging and designated ADRCs. But moreover, we really discussed strengthening the funding model to ensure sustainability long-term. So key priorities for those recommendations were kind of refining and developing our advocacy approach for additional state funding opportunities. 2 is thinking through how to prioritize the highest value, most feasible opportunities really for revenue diversification and what we can learn from existing ADRCs and their success in doing so. And 3 is there's an opportunity really to provide more clarification on the appropriate use of funds. And that spoke to, I think, what Joe and Larry talked about just like the intended purpose of the infrastructure grants and kind of how we share best practices around the startup administration costs versus programmatic and ongoing operational funding. So there's still a lot of discussion, I think, to be had about what that will look like in its ideal form moving forward. And then capacity building, I think this was clear that there's a lot of activity going on in the training space. We heard from the work group already, and Wilson and Amanda's sharing the great survey work. So we're going to be using that to inform, I think, and refine some of these priorities as it relates to training and TA. So we'll have our ear to the ground in terms of what those look like moving forward. And we'll also be exploring that in greater detail at the next meeting. But I think too, there's just a good opportunity here, which the group raised as well, for more targeted engagement for the interested and unsure counties where the gaps in coverage currently exist. So I know that was a whirlwind tour. I think I think I have one more slide, just kind of what we have in the pipeline as far as continuing to keep everyone apprised of our status and progress across these the components of the business plan. So here we are today on May 19th. We're planning to go also to the training work group next week, which is great because we'll get some more ideas from that group in terms of the priorities for capacity building and supports. We're going to be going to the data outcomes work group on June 8th in advance of our 3rd meeting on information systems and communications, which will be really informative there. We'll also go to the core partner executives meeting. We're not missing a single meeting in this, I promise. And then we'll come back to you, as I mentioned, too, in September to really do a more thorough presentation and conversation around the recommendations for the final business plan. So with that, any questions?
Everyone, so much. Thank you so much. We have one hand up, Ramon.
Talking about sustainability, I don't know, are there any federal entities like the Administration for Community Living that could help the kind of work we're doing here?
I think certainly we talked about kind of just very briefly kind of the funds flow of the system and a lot of historical support from ACL. I think we didn't get into specifics of what those might be. I think Wilson, you shared some resources too that I think we can continue to look at in terms of the tools that they offer. I think specifically around like no wrong door business case development, that kind of thing. But for funding, I think we'll have to probably take that one back for the moment. But it's great to hear that that's of interest. So we'll have more of a expansive view of funding opportunities, not just at the state level.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is Wilson, CDA. So there are existing funding sources from the Administration for Community Living that does fund ADRC related activities. So like some of it would be like Older Americans Act dollars. There's I think Rehabilitation Act dollars that independent living centers get, Older American Act dollars that AAA's get. That fund, enhanced, that fund information referral, options counseling and transition services. So those are existing funding sources, but if we're talking about like new funding sources that are for ADRCs, one was the No Wrongdoor Governance grant that we got that Collaborative Consulting had talked about earlier in terms of developing a state leadership council. So that was a funding opportunity. I don't know if there's any other new ones, and so that is available right now, but those are the ones that are off the top of my head. So hopefully that's helpful, Roman.
Thank you.
The Cows Connect program,
I don't know where that funding source, which funding source that is.
ACL.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So the Cows Connect pilot, which is expanding Alzheimer's, dementia, related dementia, service navigation. That was a grant through ACL, and it's being piloted similarly with kind of a statewide coordinated entry point and referral space, and then 3 sites: Ventura County, Marin County, and Imperial County. A potential, pilot, and then hopefully it could turn into a model for duplication across the ADRC network. Other follow-up questions, comments for Manat? End of the meeting. It's always that Friday, almost 2 o'clock. Carolyn and Zarin, thank you so much, and we look forward to continuing to hear on the progress of the business plan.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful to meet you all again, and we look forward to providing another update down the line.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, ladies.
Bye.
Okay, we kind of already touched on partner updates, but any additional updates members of the committee would like to provide around ADRC efforts, stuff going on in their area? Okay, seeing no hands. Item number 11, public comment. Another opportunity for members of the public to comment on any of the items we've covered so far. Well, we've covered in this meeting. If you're interested in making public comment, you can raise your hand and we'll unmute you. Okay. Seeing no hands. Item number 12, summary and action items. And I always rely on Wilson for this.
Luckily, I wrote something down. Okay, so I have 3 items. This is Wilson, PDA. So 3 items. One of them is correcting the March minutes. I think in terms of member attendance, I think we had 1 correction. Second was providing the POCL survey questions.
Yeah.
So we'll send that out. And then third and last that I have is providing the approved draft or the adopted draft committee work plan to the group and seeing if there's any further changes until July.
There was a website, something or other that somebody wanted, I forget what it was, but
Yeah.
remember? I think it was the Polka. Was it the Polka? Okay.
I think so, yeah. So the website has the survey
Okay.
questions potentially, but I'll write that down.
And how they arrived at this.
Right. how they
Exactly,
arrived at
how
the
did we get those questions?
Development of it.
Right.
Was the issue.
Is there anything else? That's all I have on my list.
Any other action items that committee members want to include? All right, well, we're almost done. So agenda item number 13 is suggestions for agenda items at future meetings. Open conversation, thoughts. Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. You know, it'd be nice with the other work groups if there's an opportunity to do maybe more of a formal report out. I like the updates, but kind of like, you know, we're lucky working with Manat. We actually have a consultant in our committee, but it would be nice to kind of see something maybe more substantive, more formal. It would help to understand it rather than a 5-minute verbal report out.
Yeah, great point, Joe. So maybe staff recognizing that all of our committee members are very busy. Maybe staff can work with the committees to put together a few slides. And we can have a little bit of a visual.
Even a few paragraphs.
Yeah. Great suggestion. Other ideas, thoughts, agenda items?
So Wilson, will we get those before our next meeting?
The things I listed, yes.
The summaries, the written summaries.
Oh, the written summary, yes, we can make that happen. Let me go ahead and put that down too. Yeah, because those 3 items that we mentioned earlier, plus that one, the written summaries of the, yep.
Great. Kelly, you have your hand up.
Yeah, just one suggestion. I know in some of our like other external communication, we've heard from some of the emerging ADRCs, and they've shared like some of the challenges that they've had in the process or some of their successes. And I know we have a space to spotlight, but maybe if we had presentation or more formal discussion or opportunity for the emerging ADRCs to kind of share what they're doing or how things are progressing and challenges that they see or successes, I feel like that would be nice since we have so many coming down the pipeline, just to kind of spotlight them a little bit more. Just a suggestion for future meetings.
How's that sound for staff? Good. Yes, Wilson.
Clarifying question, this is Wilson. Is that kind of like enhancing like the spotlight agenda item that we already have, or?
It sounds like, yeah, using the, well, follow up, yeah, Kelly.
Well, either way, I don't have a preference, but I just thought maybe, because we only give, the spotlight is what, 5-10 minutes, so maybe if we could either like incorporate that in the spotlight and expand it or have like a separate like 10-minute presentation just for folks to kind of update us on what they're working on. So that didn't really answer your question.
Yeah, in my mind, the spotlight is often really community member focused, like highlighting a success story where it sounds like we're talking about more hearing from the emergings on what they're navigating, what's working, what's challenging. So it sounds like it might be a separate item. Yeah. Great. Anything else?
I have one other suggestion.
Yes.
If we could hear from ADRCs in other states, I know for us at Alzheimer's LA, we've been really interested in the Wisconsin ADRCs and the way that they have things structured. Like for us specifically, we're interested in the dementia care specialists that they've embedded in every ADRC, and they have a different structure and how staff are supported by the state in each individual ADRC. So maybe if we could get presentations or information from other states, I would be interested to just kind of learn. I know that's in some of the other analysis that have been done, but would love to get some kind of more like a presentation to this group so we could all learn.
Great. And just on that, potentially tying that in to the existing kind of ADRD pilot that we're doing in California. So it's kind of what are we emerging as kind of in this space? What's working well in other spaces, specifically around Alzheimer's, dementia, and how that plugs into the ADRCs. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
You
Thanks,
know,
Eli.
expand it to other areas of, what other states are doing in the ADRC space. But focusing on dementia first. Good, yes.
Yeah, I'd like to second that idea, because I heard about ADRCs in Florida from a former student, and it seemed like it was a lot more developed. They got federal money 20 years ago, and they've been off and running for 2 decades. But I think it might be helpful to hear a case study of a state that, has been up for quite a while and how it's worked out.
Great. Any comments, thoughts from staff on that? Okay.
Cindy.
And Cindy has her hand up.
Yeah, piggybacking on what Kelly said, I was thinking of that as well, but I think collaborative consulting cited a couple of different no wrong door statewide efforts. And so I think that might be really interesting to help us start to wrap our head around that idea.
Maybe, perfect. So that would, yeah. Thank you, Cindy. So starting with collaborative to help frame those efforts. Anything else on future meeting topics, agenda items?
What do we have in line for the agenda for next time?
I think just based on the current agenda, there's quite a bit of standing agenda items that we have. I think we talked about it with Eli and Victoria as our chairs, that take up the majority of the time already. So perhaps we will need to explore like which one, how to shuffle around some of them, maybe, decrease the timing of some of the agenda items so that we can free up some time for new ones as well. But a lot of this tied up with standing items such as the updates that we've had.
So are we not expecting another report from Annette for our next meeting?
I think that's built into our agenda. We have to, I think each meeting, depending on the agenda that the chair wishes to see and also suggestions from the committee. We try to build an agenda each and every time. So we try to add up all the minutes to make sure that it equals out to the 3 hours of meeting time that we have.
So we don't have a set agenda except for the standing items for next time.
Correct, for the next one.
It would seem to me that for as much work as Nat is doing for us, that they could give us some updates on some of what is going on. I mean, July is our next meeting. When is our next meeting?
July.
July. That's all. It's about a month and a half or something like that. So we should be able to get some updates from them about that.
So I kind of blinked on that, but yeah, they, as Manat mentioned earlier, in their stakeholder engagement on that timeline. So July is on their calendar for providing an update. And so it will be on the agenda. There's a spreadsheet that me, Eli, and Victoria have that lists all the different meetings each month and the topics that we've been plugging in based on everyone's recommendations. For example, the DBS presentation, I think we have a calendar for the November meeting. So we do have, standing items plus anything that we can calendar in advance, but I'm blanking on like what's on that spreadsheet.
Exactly what it is, because you're asking for suggestions, but if we don't know what is good already. Okay, so I think, in order for us to make suggestions, we need to have an idea what the volume is.
Very fair point. Larry,
Yeah, real quickly, and Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, in July, we should have a draft business plan that Manat should be able to, debut at the July meeting. So I think they'll probably need more than the 15 minutes to go over that.
Joe's nodding his head. Okay.
I think on that, based on our experience in the sustainability work group, we had some pretty robust discussions and debate. So I think we probably want to consider that, because when you're looking at that business plan, you're talking about money, you're talking about funding. What's the money going to get spent on? We have emerging ADRCs coming in. We have a set amount of funding. I think it's gonna invoke people to ask questions, because we're getting to that point where the rubber meets the road. So we might want to consider at some point having a longer extended meeting, because that business plan is a lot about the direction of this. And once it's in place and it's in print and we adopt it, then it goes. And I'm sure there's going to be lots of AAAs and or emerging ADRCs and existing ADRCs are going to have comments on it and maybe want some input on it.
Agree totally. Thank you. And I apologize, I've got to run right now. So thank you guys for the meeting today.
So hearing the suggestion, whether it's the July meeting or the September meeting, when the business plan is finalized and ready to give a full report out, blocking that time out, or even adding time to that.
There was a very robust discussion about the fundamental use of the money going to the ADRCs, whether or not it was for infrastructure, creating partnerships, and like that, or programs. And because all of the ideas for how to provide sustainability for the ADRC is in the program area, this needs to be resolved.
Yeah. So Wilson CDA again. Yeah, so we had, just to piggyback on what Rita had just mentioned, yeah, there was a discussion about whether funding is used for infrastructure or whether it's used for program, services, staffing. And so it's a little bit of both. However, I think we, because Manat and CDA had a chance to kind of debrief afterwards, just yesterday actually, and we kind of talked it through, is that the ADRC infrastructure grant funds can be used for a program or direct services, but it's limited direct services. Specifically the 4 core ADRC service functions. So that's enhanced information referral, option counseling, short-term service coordination, and transition services. And not to be confused with being able to use the money as a LTSS gap filler. And what we mean by that is, because, whether it's nutrition or transportation, because there is the existing funding sources for a very specific population. There were questions at the beginning of when the infrastructure grants first started, whether those funds can be used to serve those people that, aren't served by existing funding sources. And our response has been to that as it's not meant to be an LTSS gap filler. It's meant for very limited direct services. Again, those 4 core service functions.
I'll tell you why the other reason it's so important. So if the ADRC money from CDA is primarily for infrastructure, then that $10 million, hopefully more, is always going to be in that area. But the money that CDA is encouraging us to look at for sustainability is not that kind of money. It's program money. It's MAC funds and it's Cal Aid. So at some point, I think people need to be crystal clear that that's all that money is, because even with the legislature, that's going to get confusing. If we're not very straight about it, what is this going to be used for?
So just earlier during the ADRC funding update portion of it, we talked about, like when I was providing an update about infrastructure grants, I had talked about we have a new approach in terms of figuring out a new funding allocation methodology. So that's something we're looking into, is to propose something, hopefully in the future to legislature and to our Department of Finance about having it be funding that's based on service or workload of services. So again, those 4 core ADRC service functions, if we're projected to have a higher workload, meaning, we project to serve more people in information referral, option counseling, transition services, then we would seek a higher amount, or there would be a higher budgeted amount of funding that's dedicated for ADRC infrastructure grants. Long story short, we're still kind of pursuing that, but we kind of see it being similar to IHSS in terms of like, if the IHSS caseload has grown 5% every year for the last 3 years, then perhaps we can, if we have a funding allocation methodology approved to do so, then we can project and budget a 5% increase for the following year for our ADRCs. If the trend is heading that direction. We're calling it a estimates or a volume-based funding allocation methodology.
Yeah, the kind of like we give, like CDSS gives the county allocations, we used estimates to determine that,
Okay, yeah, so that's something we didn't use that, my apologies, I didn't mention that during my update, I didn't know how many people would know that term, but obviously you know, Rita. But that's something that, we are gonna plan to start the conversation with Department of Finance, potentially fall of this year. But again, with the state budget situation that we have currently, we don't know how receptive they are. So again, it's just more of a kind of introducing idea, planting a seed. But that's kind of our thoughts and intentions that we have. And we've talked that through with some of our ADRC stakeholders, AAAs and ILCs about that idea.
Yeah, and I think the Manat definition of what infrastructure was very clear. So that was very reassuring.
All right, we're a few minutes past. Any final words for the good of the order before we adjourn? All right.
Well done, Mr. Chairman.
Have a good one. We need a motion. I always forget on this. No, we're good. All right.
Are we under Bagley team? No.
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 All right. Take care, and we will see you in July.
Okay.
Bye.
Good bunch, good company.